I've been wanting to host casual races among content creator friends for quite a while now, and we finally got some of the boys together to host a casual Act 1 race. The rules are really simple. My friends Lolcohol, DeadRabb1t, and MisoxShiru are going to race through Act 1. Each one of them has picked their own builds, and they must complete all side quests and objectives. They have to do Fraythorn, they have to do Candlemass, they have to get every passive point and permanent buff available. Whoever kills Gianor first wins. Welcome to Crimson Cast's Casual Races. And no, DeadRabb1t, you're already moving.
What the fuck? We gotta reset.
No, just go. Rabbit's going, and he's deafened in the call already. Just go.
What the
Oh,
shit?
just go? Okay.
Rabbit has a 5-second advantage. We're gonna punish him after the fact, but just go for now. All right, chat, you're with me. DeadRabb1t's cheating. Spam cheater in his chat so he knows that he's a cheater. So far, we're getting off the beach. We have 3 different builds going. We've got a Ranger for Miso. I believe he's planning on playing Lightning Arrow. Lolcohol is playing Grenades, and DeadRabb1t is playing Essence Drain Contagion. Essence Drain Contagion on its own is by far the strongest of these 3 skills for Act 1, mostly because both Grenades and Lightning Arrow are going to require multiple weapon upgrades, whereas DeadRabb1t can easily get off the beach, transmute a staff or a wand early on, get plus 60% spell damage, and that can be enough for it. We're going to go ahead and focus on DeadRabb1t to start because he's first to the Miller. As we take a look on him, he's going to be dodging these important slams. He has 42 max HP, and the max damage of the Miller's main overhand slam is going to be 40. Means if he takes even a tiny amount of chip damage from any of these minions, that slam will be lethal, so he has to be especially careful about his positioning. Lolcohol on the bottom right of your screen is also going to be fighting the Miller, but it's a little bit safer on the crossbow, easier to manage. It's unlikely that you get caught up in the mobs, so you should be fine. And then we will be ready to go. It looks like Lolcohol is going to make up a little bit of pace. MisoxShiru has slightly less damage against the Miller than the other cases. Lightning Arrow does a better job at managing the mobs, and DeadRabb1t is the first one off the beach, but he did have that 5-second advantage. He takes his first skill point and gets a chainmail and a orb of augmentation. Watching Lolcohol here to finish on his fight. You can see that Lolcohol finishes, gets the level up, and we'll see what his drops are really quickly. He gets torn gloves, a shabby hood, and a gelid staff. We'll see if he can ID that set of torn gloves underneath it, and we will now watch Miso's Miller fight. Miso should be finishing up just now. It's very important for him to get a quiver or a bow here. Because he's playing separate weapons where he needs both a bow and a quiver, his currency is going to be much, much more important. So we'll see what he can get on the ID here, and we'll be back to the balanced perspective as we see all 3 players trying to get into Clearfell. Lolcohol went AFK though, so Lolcohol is showboating. DeadRabb1t gets an early transmute and transmutes onto his wand. It's not possible for him to get plus spell levels at this low of a level. That beach wand is not high enough level for him to do it. And he's going to continue exploring and trying to find his way through Clearfell. And now we're looking at a shopping trip from Lolcohol. He's going to see what he can do. He IDs these gloves, gets a little bit of cold res, no damage available on that. Should be able to talk to Una and continue here, and he'll cut Explosive Grenade, which he'll be out into Clearfell in 3rd place. Looks like Miso has the strongest read on this map, though. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Miso is doing in the Clearfell. He's taking much better experience than is going to be possible, at least super early on, from Essence Drain Contagion and from Grenades, as Lightning Arrow is able to kill these white mobs in the Clearfell particularly well. One thing I want to point out is that a lot of speedrunners are going to be playing much more aggressively with the overlay map. We're now going to take a quick focus on DeadRabb1t as he is our first player to fight Bira. So the minion playstyle should be particularly effective and safe here. All he needs to do is dodge these icicles. He has a large number of minions, especially with Unearth here, and you can see he's really doing significant damage now as his minion hordes overwhelm the boss. He should be the first one to kill Bira. He gets a tense crossbow and some stocky mitts. We'll see what he IDs there. 17 max life and some armor on the gloves. Very good there. Now we'll take a look at Miso as well, fighting the same boss. Miso with the Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod combination is going to be doing a whole lot. You'll also notice on the bottom of your screen that he is exposing with Frost bomb as well, so that exposure stacking up with the lightning arrow, lightning rod. And we're going to be looking for an early short bow for Miso here as the best possible drop. Pretty unlikely that he gets it, but we're hoping for good drops for our boys, of course. And now Miso will finish that up. He gets a couple of felled great clubs and a rusted great helm. Grabs the head of the Winter Wolf for some cold res, and now we will take a look at Lolcohol on that same boss. Lolcohol, continuing to progress through the fight, should be particularly safe, has a hood on already, and is using Contagion, which is a little bit of an off-meta choice for crossbow players, actually. Among the racers, Contagion is out of style. So none of our 3 players getting particularly valuable drops early on, and we'll be back to the balanced scene while we wait for someone to find early items. They're fighting the League mechanic. These first 2 League mechanics, both in the Grellwood and in Clearfell, are going to drop Orbs of Transmutation. So we're going to watch out for the weapon slams, particularly early on, as we see people hunting for these first couple of items. Cast speed on the upgraded wand for DeadRabb1t, so not the suffix we're looking for, plus levels, of course, being the important thing. But then fire resistant and elemental resistant aura is a great set of modifier combinations for Rabbit. Let's take a look at Miso, though. Miso having the lightning arrow, lightning rod fight against Ariadne pretty far ahead of DeadRabb1t already, at least in terms of the initial damage. However, as she continues to move, it's going to be difficult to get damage on her with these lightning rods, where she'll continue to walk off of the piles. But he's chaining from terrain and managing the mobs well, so he should be in a good position here. You'll notice that as she moves, even though he found the boss first, DeadRabb1t is able to make up space with much more consistent damage over time. Grab some suede gloves there, and we'll see the ID from Miso. He gets some increased evasion rating. Taking a look at DeadRabb1t as he continues to progress. We'll see what the options are here, but it looks like we need to take a look at Lolcohol, who might have gotten run over by a mob there, but was able to just barely avoid by throwing out some early grenades. And he is still looking for Ariadne the Witch. So DeadRabb1t appears to be in the slight lead. Miso about 10 seconds behind, and Lolcohol trailing as he tries to read the zone. And we're back to the balanced scene while we wait for some more action. Okay, so players continuing to invest here. Lolcohol being very, very careful, using Contagion to kite through the mobs, particularly important. Miso has that superior kiting ability with that lightning arrow, lightning rod setup. You'll notice that he's throwing down these lightning rods. Careful, he's going to get overwhelmed by that pack of wolves if he's not too careful. And our first player to locate the red veil is MisoxShiru, so far early on in the lead among our 3 racers here. And you can see the panic setting in, the locked in facial expressions for all 3 of our runners. And so Lolcohol is going to go in and grab that Grim Tangle waypoint and then going to go pack out. That'll save him a loading screen later on. And DeadRabb1t will be the first of our players to enter the red veil. So what he's going to look for in here is one of several different layouts. None of our racers today know the base layout reads for this zone, but it should be a zone that's particularly quick for the Essence Drain. Essence Drain, of course, going to do well where you have a large number of low HP monsters. That means that there's a particular advantage in Act 1 with areas like Red Veil, where you're going to be summoning huge numbers of white monsters alongside all of the different acts, alongside all those different obelisks. He actually has a layout called Bump, and we will keep up with him. But for now, let's take a look at Lolcohol, who's having his own Ariadne fight. Lolcohol, lightning resistant and empowering plants. So that should be a fight that's pretty okay for the grenade build, though he will need to be careful about kiting out these purple orbs. Gets a changeling talisman as well as his support gem, and will now be able to jump back over and catch back up to Red Veil. Let's go ahead and focus Miso for a moment. Lightning Arrow is going to be pretty good here. One of the things that's especially important for those of you who are watching this for League start tips is that the weapon racks in this area drop guaranteed upgrades for all weapon builds. You get the next tier of whatever weapon you're using. So you can see Miso doing pretty okay damage, acceptable damage with his starter bow. But as he looks for a short bow, by clicking on these weapon racks, you can expect to see about a 45 to 50% base damage increase in his lightning arrow, and that will mean that this mob would already be dead if he had such an upgrade. So Miso kiting those mobs is going to be particularly important. It actually looks like all of our runners have gotten pretty similar layouts. So in terms of what the actual RNG is for the layouts that people can get, looks like it's pretty fair so far. No particularly fair or unfair layouts. We will see Miso struggling a little bit there. League Mechanic on DeadRabb1t, though. This will be a level 2 skill gem upgrade, but he's out of flask charges. Needs the dodge roll out of the way. He has no more flask charges. Has to rely on the Contagion and Unearth in order to get more flask charges. If he doesn't, if he takes a single off-screen hit from a rage attack, DeadRabb1t will live up to his name here, but he gets the flask charges by kiting out that mob and lives to fight another day. Beautiful gameplay there. Playing cautiously from DeadRabb1t, and with that level 2 skill gem, we will see him upgrade his Contagion. Again, about a 40% damage upgrade on the League Mechanic for him there. Taking a quick visit to Lolcohol. Lolcohol on the second obelisk already. Has not found that League Mechanic, but should be in a position to get to the Rust King, the first of all of our runners here. So he should be in a good position here. Choosing to fight this rare would be a pretty difficult choice, but he's going to be fine here instead. Onto that third obelisk is Lolcohol, and we're back to the balanced scene as all three of our runners on obelisks at the same time. Lolcohol dropping low there, taking big chunk damage from the Rust King, needs to kite people there. Hits level 5 though. Yellow straw sandals on the left side of Lolcohol's screen. We'll see if those have movement speed on them, but first we need to survive this fight. None of our racers have found a particularly potent upgrade at this point in the run, so far everyone's struggling on the item RNG, and we'll look for some shopping trips after these Rust King kills to see what we can do. DeadRabb1t making safe progress through the zone though. Will hit level 5 as well before his own Rust King fight, and he's on his second obelisk, and then MisoxShiru safely clearing his second obelisk as well. Now on those level 4 flasks, all three of these players should be significantly more survivable. As Lolcohol is the only one on the Rust King, we'll focus him for the moment. About half HP, should be perfectly fine. Struggling a little bit with the grenade placement, but has plenty of flask charges as we see the Rust King drop down to 1/3 HP. So this should be particularly easy fight for Lolcohol. Struggling with the cooldowns on those Act 1 grenades that are difficult to use. Has the upgrade crossbow in his inventory, throwing some items away in anticipation of the drops from this Rust King, and is able to bring him down just before the lash comes out from the others. Take a look and see what he gets on his shopping trip back to town before the others go to Rust King. Keep an eye on the bottom corners of your screen as both of our other racers have found the Rust King in time. Grabs the upgrades there, transmutes, and gets 1 to 1.35% critical strike chance. So not the prefixes that we're looking for, but with an augment, Lolcohol can find better damage there. We'll take the balanced view so you guys can see the Rust King fights from both Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t at the same time, and you guys can see both players using Frost Bomb to get exposure. That's obviously more important for MisoxShiru, who has a beautiful pile of widespread lightning rods underneath the feet of the Rust King here. Less important for DeadRabb1t's build, which does a lower amount of elemental damage. You notice that DeadRabb1t so far continuing to rely on Unearth. There was an interesting question of whether or not he was used Contagion alongside something like Spark, or perhaps Entangle as his accelerant for Contagion passing through mobs, but he gets the kill on Rust King, and we will temporarily focus DeadRabb1t as the all-important shopping trip comes through. Excuse me. So we're looking to see if he finds any item upgrades here, identifies that. 24 max life and double res on the chest piece is particularly good. Go ahead and destroy these other items, get rid of some life regen, talk to Renly to buy the items. We will see if he takes a shopping trip to Una. We're looking to see if he can find anything. Shopping with his regex. This is a transformative moment. Big spell damage, increased lightning spell levels. Nothing super important there. 413 is an amount of gold that he can't afford. Has an amulet and decides not to sell it. And now we will take a look at Miso, who just finished his own fight. Still has a short bow in inventory. Really wants the shabby hood as well. And now he should be able to get out of here with that town portal. We'll see what modifiers he gets when he identifies this short bow here. The short bow in his inventory, very important breakpoint in his build. If he gets good damage prefixes, you're looking for flat damage of any kind when he eventually works on this short bow. So for the moment, he's 2 to 5 physical damage and 6% attack speed. That's a very good upgrade there in the shop for Miso. Miso going to need to figure out his inventory management, selling a couple of items to try and make sure that he honors the rules of the game. And I believe that he would be able to afford this in almost any case. This is totally fair for him to take. Okay. And then now we're going to focus Lolcohol for the moment, as Lolcohol is fighting the Grim Tangle boss, looking for a support gem here. For the grenade players in the chat, This is almost certainly going to become Elemental Armament 1, a support gem that gives 25% more elemental damage. And we have our first death of the race! Gets shotgunned down by the boss! You can see the look of surprise on his face. He was not happy about that at all. Continuing to progress through, though, choosing to not fight the boss the rest of the way and instead work his way. Aware, though, Alk LFG's in the chat. Now we will take a quick look at DeadRabb1t entering the Grimtangle of his own. Grimtangle should be a particularly safe zone for these minions. And you can see along the bottom of his bar there, though, about half a level away from level 6. So we should see Essence Drain Contagion coming online around the time that he enters Cemetery, which would be particularly valuable as an upgrade for him. Miso as well, safely working his way through the Grimtangle. And Lolcohol choosing to not double back and fight that Grimtangle boss again. You'll notice that if we take a look at Miso here, one thing that you want to be particularly careful of is that fungal proliferator. Miso with a beautiful tactical pause to reset at checkpoint and avoid the death there. That unit that he was standing in front of is a fungal proliferator, the bigger, taller, wider units, like this guy here with the lightning enchant, and they summon lines of yellow exploding mushrooms that leave poison puddles on the ground. That's the chief danger in this zone. Looks like Miso, with some pretty pristine game knowledge, able to avoid the most dangerous attack in that zone with a great pause, and going to continue with Lightning Arrow, kiting out these mobs, using those dodge rolls to great effect, and trying to kite the mob back over his lightning rod stack, and he should be on a good pace to be able to equip this higher level bow pretty soon. Take a quick look at Lolcohol, though. Lolcohol in the cemetery, dropping a little bit low to this chain of fire, and he's actually cornering himself just a little bit. And he gets movement speed boots in addition to double res on those straw sandals, so that's very, very good. Hasn't found either of the tombs yet, though, and will get slammed again, and he will die a second time! Lolcohol, 2 deaths on main cast. I can't believe it. Except for that I can. DeadRabb1t now fighting against the Rotten Druid, looking for a support gem of his own. We'll be very interested to see if he chooses a more comfortable League Start style choice here, where you'd have something like Unleash, perhaps, on your Contagion. Or if you want a little bit of Magnified Area, perhaps, to save Chain for your Essence Drain later. Lots of potential uses to get this build online. Swift Affliction would be the meta among speedrunners, dealing more damage per second over fewer seconds with your choice here, and instead he goes for what I believe was the typical Unleash support gem, which is pretty good choice. And you can actually see Miso down here in the bottom, and now in focus is fighting the League mechanic. This will give him a Regal Orb. This Regal Orb is going to be exceptionally important for the Lightning Arrow players in chat. Your level 11 bow base is particularly good for for Lightning Arrow, because it gives a chance to chain additional times and therefore activate your lightning rods more and clear mobs more efficiently with those additional chains. And so that Regal Orb in my hands would be saved for that level 10 or 11 base. We will see what Miso chooses to do as he progresses through the cemetery. Lolcohol gave up despite being in the lead. Lolcohol gave up despite being in the lead. And he's back now after his second death, locked back in. None of our players so far have found the tombs. It looks like Lolcohol did find the Mausoleum of the Praetor on the top of his screen, continuing to make progress. One thing I want to point out for anyone who's looking for League Start tips in this video, you want to be not quite hugging the wall, but definitely just barely touching the edge of your light radius to the edge of this zone. The most likely place for the Tomb of the Consort and Mausoleum of the Praetor is around the perimeter of the zone. So as you look at DeadRabb1t's zigzag strategy that is slightly behind the state-of-the-art among top speedrunners. So you'd want to use a strategy a little bit more like what you're seeing from Miso and Lolcohol in terms of how to clear this zone if you don't have the layouts memorized. A yellow chest available there with a beautiful yellow fur plate for Lolcohol. Gets some flat max life. That's particularly good. And DeadRabb1t now has Essence Drain and Contagion online and makes quick work of the League mechanic there. Lolcohol getting overwhelmed by the mob, trying to use the low-level Contagion alongside his grenades. Contagion perhaps giving him a false sense of confidence about the rate at which he would clear these mobs. That level 1 Contagion starts to drop off around this point. It looks like he's having a little bit more contact time with the mobs than he might have otherwise expected. So far, anybody's raised a beautiful Iron Ring for Lolcohol, and he considers a Transmute on it. Transmutes it to get 13 maximum life. Given that he's already had 2 deaths, that might be the best outcome, though from a damage perspective, you'd most like to see 1 to 6 lightning. Our first player to enter one of the tombs is DeadRabb1t. We'll see him looking for both a support gem as well as a boss fight in this region, making quick work, continuing with his summons through the zone. Rabbit, of course, an expert level player of Essence Drain Contagion, is in what we call the reverse layout. Gets a twig focus, a yellow twig focus, a huge upgrade for him. We'll see what the damage mods are on that as he continues to kite the boss out of the zone, letting his minions make quick work of the rare monsters minions. And DeadRabb1t now, I would say, confidently in the lead by about 30 to 40 seconds compared to our other players, as Essence Drain Contagion and his minions will make quick work of this zone. We'll see what he does when he IDs that focus. I'm going to keep him focused here, and you see Essence Drain. He's going to go and put Zenith in. Zenith giving you more damage at higher max mana. 44% spell damage, 41% chaos damage. That is one of the best possible focuses. DeadRabb1t having dominantly good RNG at this point, having beautiful, beautiful damage. You'll see him progressing through those chaos damage nodes. So now at this point, based on the RNG at least, DeadRabb1t in a very comfortable position, but taking a lot of damage here and will need to dodge the fireballs from these multi-projectile enemies. Chooses the dodge roll all the way past and has a sprint trip in a much safer position. His minions coming to rescue him, and he should be able to make his way through the zone. We'll briefly focus Lolcohol, having his own rare ambush fight as he looks for his support gem. This support gem should be cut on explosive grenade to become elemental armament, and it does. Very conventional choice. Slightly less easy layout variant for DeadRabb1t, for Lolcohol compared to DeadRabb1t, so we'll see what he can do. Those gloves he just picked up off the ground have a chance to have flat damage, but do not fulfill that promise. And now he will fight a league mechanic perhaps where he can get an amulet. No, chooses to pass it by. We're going to go back to focusing on DeadRabb1t having a boss fight. DeadRabb1t with minions, it's going to be a slightly more difficult Act 1 set of boss fights than he otherwise would have, but fueled by an incredible focus pickup with, again, 44% spell damage, 41% chaos damage. He should be in a very comfortable position to bring this boss down, even with Essence Drain and Wither as his only available tools. You'll see he makes comfortable choice. So at the 21st minute of the run, we have our first tomb boss kill from DeadRabb1t. Gets both an Exalt and a Regal, an unbelievable set of luck for him. Has a Regal available there, considers exalting, gets some additional cold resistance on that focus, and now we will take a quick focus onto MisoxShiru. MisoxShiru now in Tomb of the Consort as well, using those beautifully placed lightning rods as well as lightning arrows to continue clearing this mob, playing very defensively, kiting out the mobs as well he should on this more glass cannon oriented lightning arrow build with lower strength and slightly lower mob clear compared to his other competitors, but in a beautiful position so far, a very close race, and you can now see Lolcohol has located his boss, and we will see the second boss kill. But an Amber Amulet, a beautiful pickup there for Miso. Miso now will have enough strength to equip any basic armors that he would like that he meets the equip requirement for both the level 4 and level 11 pure armor bases, as well as hybrids. So in addition to giving him additional base max life, he'll be in a position where he can be much more defensively oriented as a consequence of meeting those stat requirements. That's a very impactful pickup for MisoxShiru. Lolcohol on the other side, going to be using his grenade damage here to try and kill Asinia as efficiently as he can, using Contagion, relying on it a bit more than I might have expected, playing very carefully around these green seals, and we see that he's still on that makeshift crossbow, has not yet found an augment or an upgrade, and so as a consequence, his damage is suffering a little bit, and he's going to get caught inside this bone prison here. Needs to be careful, but will survive the fight, and drops a yellow sturdy crossbow, as well as both a transmute and an orb of augmentation. We'll see what Lolcohol does to augment that crossbow in his inventory, get a big potential damage upgrade, as well as potentially dramatically more damage for Geonor in the form of that yellow sturdy crossbow. We're back to focusing on MisoxShiru. Miso using lightning rods against Asinia, one of the more mobile bosses in Act 1, but doing well so far. Tries the dodge roll out of the bone prison there, struggling a little bit, but eventually doesn't get out, beautifully dodging the shotgun attack from the summoned Draven and doing really well to play around these green seals as well. So excellent boss combat so far from Miso, as well as mob mechanics. Strong mechanical player. None of these three players have exceptionally good layout reading compared to top racers, but we're seeing very, very good quality of play so far. Looks like DeadRabb1t is a little bit confused. We're going to go ahead and focus him after Miso finishes an Asinia fight. You'll notice that he is stuck in the map layout for Draven. And a beautiful last shot there from Miso. Unbelievable pristine play there. Gets an Iron Head Spear and an Orb of Augmentation. But you'll notice, if you take a look at the center of this screen, where DeadRabb1t is, the entrance is available, and then there's that plus shine shaped tile on the center of that map. You can see that plus sign shape. There's almost always a line from the entrance through that plus sign to the boss arena, and DeadRabb1t gave a minute back to his competitors by running through the zone inefficiently. You can see that Lolcohol is in a bit of a similar position, actually, where Lolcohol is similarly not seeing where the boss is. We know that the boss is in the top right of his map, so you'll see him double back into that big empty void. You can see the entrance to the boss arena there. And so Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t both losing a little bit of time, not knowing one of the most common map heuristics for this zone. We'll see if Miso does any better, but DeadRabb1t is onto the boss with that beautiful focus on a strong wand. Should be making quick work of Draven. Maintains about a 1-minute lead over the others options here. And you can see that Lolcohol, very confused and frustrated, zooming in on his map overlay on the bottom right of your screen. And Miso, with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, runs into the League mechanic and chooses not to engage it. Only a rune on offer for him there. You can see a yellow scepter for DeadRabb1t, and DeadRabb1t is the first of our players to 2 MacGuffins. Now we're back to the balanced view while we wait for more opportunities for boss combat, and it should be the case that Lolcohol ducks into this hallway down here and will eventually find the boss. So now we see Lolcohol on Draven and DeadRabb1t on Lachlan. I'm going to go ahead and give us a focus on DeadRabb1t for the moment while maintaining Lolcohol in the bottom right of our screen. You can see that there will be a slight lower amount of boss damage from DeadRabb1t as time goes on. Essence Drain Contagion really falls off against these bosses from Lachlan through the Executioner, including the Crowbell, as well as Vargir the Feral Mutt if he chooses to fight him. And so as a consequence, you can see that DeadRabb1t is going to have much longer periods of time with these bosses, relying much more, backing off to get his energy shield to recover, and now should be in a safe position here as well. So now DeadRabb1t should be in a safe position, and we will go ahead and focus Lolcohol, who is on a boss fight of his own, as Miso continues to search for the boss in that zone as well. Lolcohol now dodge rolling away, trying to summon all these specters so he doesn't get run over, dropped his gear in the bottom of the arena, and tries to dodge roll out of this, beautifully kites the mobs into his grenades and should be in a safer position having killed those additional units. Stuns the boss here, relying on that contagion with no frost bomb for his elementally focused build with these fire-based grenades. Now Lolcohol will be finishing that up. DeadRabb1t on the bottom left of your screen, engaging the League mechanic to get another Exalt. Should be in a position where he can craft a slightly better wand in the future, though that focus is likely to carry him through. Lolcohol doing beautiful job to dodge those green seals, as well as a sword swinging animation there from Draven, and we'll finish that up at 26 minutes. Taking a visit with Miso. Miso, all 3 runners in a difficult position here. You can see the same thing again in the middle of Miso's map. There's that plus sign shaped tile. If you look at his mini map, he's running right by it right now, and that will point you the way toward the boss arena. So Miso should be looking at it right there. All 3 of our runners getting lost in that zone, and Miso, you can see the boss arena is on the top left of the map there, and he can see it already. It's just a matter of him walking around the edge of this dungeon like this in order to get into that boss arena, and we will get a boss fight from Miso. But back to the balance. While we see DeadRabb1t progressing through Hunting Ground, Lolcohol making progress on a Lachlan fight of his own, making care to dodge away from these major slams, and should be in a crisp position here. Still struggling a little bit without much of a crossbow upgrade. Has that sturdy crossbow available in his inventory when he hits level 10, but should be only about level 8 right now. DeadRabb1t looking to fight his own Crowbell, and I will give you guys the focus on Miso as we can see the Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod gameplay against the Draven boss here. Has a beautifully placed stack of lightning rods dodging to multiple sides. You can see Draven walks off with a pair of lightning rods, and Miso, ever the savvy gamer, walks off to the other side, tries to kite Draven back into that stack, realizes that there's a dangerous slam, rolls out of the way, and now is kiting back over his stack of lightning rods again. So Miso playing the build really well, and just needs to be a little bit careful here. And he should be in a safe position here. A little bit slower chip damage because of those 0.4 era nerfs to lightning rods. It's a little bit slower in Act 1, but we're looking to see that big upgrade for the level 10 bow base, where Miso should be able to get the build online. Running a little bit low on mana, underutilizing his mana flask means that he wasn't able to cast skills there for a second. Dodges to a safe position, but needs to be careful of this Eternal Knight who is chasing him. An errant lightning arrow could activate that projectile reflection, and Miso needs to be particularly careful. It takes the big swipe from Draven. Now no longer any lightning rods underneath him, and both of our other runners on the bottom of your screen fighting the Crowbell at the same time. So it remains any man's race, though Miso is beginning to fall a little bit off the pace here. Should be able to finish up safely against Draven, and in fact does. Goes ahead and steps forward to that Eternal Knight. Gets a pair of firm bracers. We're going to stick around to see the ID on that pair of firm bracers as well as on this ring. These are huge items that could slingshot Miso back into the race. Looking for flat damage on these gloves is going to be particularly important. And he gets 1 to 10 lightning damage. That's one of the best possible modifiers. That's a huge deal. That eye level 8 lightning rolling from either 1 to 10 to 1 to 15 is going to be a huge deal, and he takes a trip to town. Now we're going to take us back to the balanced scene, where Lolcohol is finishing up his Crowbell. DeadRabb1t has finished his and has progressed to Freythorn, where we will see a very exciting King in the Mists fight. Not a fight that I do often, in fact, because I am an any percent racer, and so Freythorn, not a zone that I spend a lot of time in. Lolcohol dodging the slams carefully. We're really waiting for all of our racers to hit these level 10 upgrades, especially both of our weapon users, where we're seeing a sturdy crossbow in the inventory for Lolcohol and a potential bow upgrade for Miso. And so we will see what they get there. And we have a yellow belt in the inventory for Lolcohol as well, the yellow linen belt. All of our players doing particularly well, and Pounce gets engraved by Lolcohol, who's looking to use some speedrunner tech as he continues here. Considering the option, chooses a little bit of cooldown reduction for his grenades, as well as increased area of effect. Not the racer's choice, but Lolcohol is an expert level player of grenades. There's a beautiful guide on mobalytics for Deadeye grenades in particular. That means that I'm confident that he knows the implications of this choice and should be able to continue through it. MisoxShiru on the bottom left of our screen, and now in focus, is kiting Lachlan particularly carefully. Has no mana flask and has to use these vanilla bow shots. So a very difficult fight for Miso, but managing his resources well. Is a very skilled player, as you can see, familiar with the boss mechanics, and should be able to kite this out. It will be slow, but it won't be dangerous for a player like Miso, who will be able to survive this. I have confidence as he manages his mana flasks very carefully. So he should be in a safe position here. Uses the last dregs of his mana as the boss gets stunned, and should be in a safe position here in a beautiful fight there. We will see if he gets any particularly good drops. You'll notice on the bottom left of your screen that DeadRabb1t just finished the League mechanic in Freythorn, and that League mechanic gives him an extra support gem. So we should be seeing these full builds coming online now. If we take a look at Lolcohol, though, Lolcohol will pick up Una's loot before going to Freythorn, clearing up his inventory, and perhaps unaware that he needs to do Freythorn, or going to choose and do it later. So he will now suffer his third on-stream death, and we will continue on with the race. Let's take a quick look at DeadRabb1t, though, finishing up his sets of rituals, as Miso now does an excellent job with his lightning arrow, lightning rod on the bottom left of your screen. You can see DeadRabb1t searching for the King in the Mists, who is very likely to spawn on the edge of these zones. So it's some place where you might expect the King in the Mists either to be in this top unrevealed corner, or perhaps in the far bottom unrevealed corner. So DeadRabb1t's going to have some wayfinding to do. Does eventually find the boss in this top corner. What a lucky shot for him that he didn't need to double back all the way across the zone. You'll notice that he does a good job in resetting, and now he will clear this last ritual before his fight, and we will take a quick look at Lolcohol's strategy. Lolcohol, now reading his way through Ogham Farmlands, has a bit of an unusual layout for the zone. You'll notice that he was able to progress straight from the entrance. You can see it on his overlay all the way to Una's loot hut without anything blocking him along the way. And that's pretty uncommon. Out of 12 base variations for this zone, only one of them has that. So this only has about an 8% chance of happening, and we'll see if he knows what to do without the traditional cart block tell. We'll take a quick focus down onto MisoxShiru, onto DeadRabb1t, as MisoxShiru and both Lolcohol are in safer positions, and DeadRabb1t is beginning one of the more dangerous boss fights of Act 1, which is the fight against the King in the Mists. The King in the Mists has a number of important mechanics, including summoning totems that are particularly dangerous to you, doing huge AoE damage, as well as potentially imprisoning you if you do not keep moving or stop moving, depending on which curse he goes for. And as a consequence, it's one of the more mechanically intensive fights in Act 1, and it should be a position where DeadRabb1t can be particularly expressive of his game knowledge, but has very strong chaos damage over time. You can see that the wither stacks are building up and making this dot progress very, very quickly. No debuffs taken so far, but he hasn't broken down either one of those totems. Now eventually taking down the two of them in turn, and he should be fine as he has phased the Rust King into phase 2. And so as a consequence, now we see the progression into phase 2 for DeadRabb1t. DeadRabb1t, very, very competitive and locked in at the moment. You can see he's not his usual bubbly and boisterous self. He does read the curse from the King of the Mists correctly, waits for it to expire, and then dodges the eventual purple orb slam that comes out from the second phase of the King of the Mists. Should be able to break down this totem to the left of the King of Mists as well. Needs to be particularly careful about these AoE pieces of damage, and should be fine later on. Takes a big slam down to half HP, burns all of his ES as well, but with 217 HP and 39 ES, he's particularly strong for this point in Act 1, carefully clears out the rest of that fight and should now be able to continue. Grabs that Gem Crust Skull, will have his choice of Spirit Skulls available, and he will go, I believe, Withering Presence. Let's take a look down at MisoxShiru, though. MisoxShiru should be in a safe position here. Crowbell, one of the easier bosses with more predictable positions for this Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod build, should also be able to stack up higher amounts of exposure with those Frost Bombs as well. And so this should be a clean fight for Miso. Has that level 3 gem, chooses to upgrade the Lightning Arrow as well. So all three of his skills should be at level 3 now. We'll see if Lolcohol knows what he's doing. Does he know he has to go back to Freythorn and clear that area as well? We'll take a quick look at Lolcohol, who has just ID'd his crossbow. 41% IPD, 4 to 10 physical damage. So this should be a very strong crossbow there. And then disenchants the previous one. It's very surprising. Also gets lightning damage on the gloves, if I read that correctly. So very, very strong damage for Lolcohol's lightning build. Now has hit level 10. Should be very strong there as well as some resistance on that belt. So Lolcohol with beautiful item RNG, about half an area ahead of the others, and now goes back to Freythorn to double back, whereas DeadRabb1t is now clearing the Ogum village. So it's going to be pretty difficult to know which of these runners is in the lead for the moment until we see those Ogum farmlands entries. Though if I had to guess, DeadRabb1t probably maintains about a 1-minute lead compared to our other two racers. We continue on to Lolcohol. Lolcohol with beautiful damage on that higher level crossbow. This is going to be very, very strong. I'm curious to know what his grenade tooltip is at this point in time. A very strong run, a very, very strong run for Act 1. You kill Geonor with the tooltip around 250. I would expect his tooltip right now is probably in the mid to high 100s, something like 170 or 180, which is very, very strong for this point in the level progression. And so he should be having very, very comfortable damage as he progresses through a dense packed set of rituals here. Appears that he has a very nice Freythorn seed, those first two rituals directly on top of one another. And DeadRabb1t is our first player to enter Ogum Village. Ogum Village, a particularly interesting zone in terms of the environmental design. You'll notice that these thatched roofed huts have varying amounts of destruction as their thatch has burned down, and that is part of the RNG of the layout. Each hut has a random amount of destruction applied to it. I always appreciate the environmental art in this part of the run. It feels very immersive together with the music, and you see that he quickly and efficiently finds Renly's tools. This will give him, of course, it is mandatory in this run, which is a 100% run, and he also finds a siphoning wand, has a chance for a big upgrade there. +1 to the level of all chaos spell skills, as well as some flat damage, and you can see the head roll back in relief. DeadRabb1t now confident that he has the damage to finish the run between this very strong focus, as well as having his strong +1 chaos spells wand. So he's now in a very happy position. Won't have the Bone Storm damage to trivialize the Geonor fight, but should be in a very comfortable position for the rest of the run regarding mob clear, +1 chaos spell skills, plus 40% spell damage, plus 40% chaos damage, as well as some other damage prefixes on that wand, will mean that he is in a very comfortable position. We'll take a look down now at the balance, though, as our 3 players are progressing through different zones. Miso making quick progress through Ogham Farmland, kiting these mobs efficiently, and we expect him to find an upgraded bow soon, where he can invest his currency a little bit more efficiently. Walks past a yellow chest and does not open it. Perhaps the nerves are getting to Miso as he continues to make progress through this zone very efficiently, kiting the mobs very safely there. And it should be the and it should be very easy for Miso to continue to make progress through this zone. And we now see Lolcohol, who will focus for a little bit. Lolcohol now making progress on his own version of the King of the Mists fight. Activating this final large ritual should be able to clear these mobs pretty efficiently with higher damage from the crossbows there, and he should be safe to go. So this King of the Mists fight can be particularly difficult for grenades if you're not comfortable placing the grenades. As you can see, the sort of drunken wushu style of the King of the Mists, where he's very, very mobile in this phase 1, and he should be totally fine. Avoids that first curse, positions safely away from the spell totem. And now we will see a phase 2 from Lolcohol's fight on King of the Mists. And so now we should see Lolcohol making quick progress. You'll notice these huge, impactful grenade bursts. He has all of his support gems on life very low. Oh my gosh. He walks into the purple orbs and now he's walking into the ground degen. Oh my gosh. Lolcohol not paying attention to his toes, paying attention only to his foes. And as a consequence, he will not be able to complete the fight. And we will see a fight reset from Lolcohol, his 4th on-stream death. And as a consequence, he will be pretty far behind the others. He will lose 40 seconds there, and we'll see him need to reprogress phase 1 here. Very strong crossbow puts him in a competitive position where coming back is not impossible, but DeadRabb1t has now entered Manor Ramparts with this very strong chaos damage setup and should be in a safe position to take the run away if he plays carefully throughout all of Ogham Manor. In Ogham Manor, Rabbit will need to worry about ground degen. 229 max life and 39 ES is a middle-of-the-road amount of survivability for the end of Act 1. Not particularly strong and not particularly weak, but it will be the case that because ES does a bad job at dealing with the more threatening aspects of the manor in particular, that we have to see if Rabbit can hold on, because he can die to ground degens and to either of the manor bosses in both Candlemas and Geonor, having huge abilities to bring down his defenses. He also is relying still on a very low-level chest piece that he equipped at level 4, and he has an opportunity to upgrade here if he can meet the stat equipment requirements to progress. But we will need to see if he's able to do it. Getting bullied a little bit by the mobs here, but Essence Ring Contagion making short work. And he's going to walk up to the gallows to the top right here and grab another support gem, it seems. And so he should be totally fine. Has a level 10 flask. You can see the look of focus on the German man's face. Finds the gallows, does not take the support gem, and should be able to find the manor over here far to his left. Taking a quick look to visit our friend MisoxShiru, though. Miso making progress through Ogham Village, now having a difficult time finding Renly's tools. There are a couple of possible places that they could be. My most likely explanation is that it is far over to his left on the bottom edge of the map, and he should find a checkpoint around the corner here. No. Yes? Yes, so this is exactly where I would have expected it to be. Sorry, I got faked out by the wall shape there. Now he will be able to progress here and grab Renly's tools. Grabs that and gets a sturdy crossbow as well. Has the projectile damage node to pivot if he so chooses, but does not pick up the sturdy crossbow and instead chooses to continue straight on to the Executioner and will stick with Miso as he does his Executioner fight, while DeadRabb1t on the bottom left of our screen is working his way through the manor, looking for Candlemas, and Lolcohol is all the way through into Ogham Village as well. So it's any man's race at the moment, though. DeadRabb1t does hold a couple of minutes lead and is about a zone and a half ahead of the others entering into late Act 1. So far, all 3 of our racers on pace for a sub 1 hour finish. on a 100% Act 1. These are very good times for non-racers, my friends. Please do not think that this is anything other than impressive gameplay, especially for people who have not dedicated the hundreds of hours that many racers have spent to studying Act 1 layouts. Playing this crisply and efficiently, especially on this variety of builds, is very impressive. Miso doing particularly well here on his slightly squishier character, 195 HP, 14 ES, going to be in a much more difficult fight, but kiting very effectively against the Executioner here. Drops him down to 1/3 HP, managing his flasks very conservatively, making sure that he doesn't run out of flask charges. Dodges the volcanic slam from the Executioner here, drops low, decides to spend those flask charges, charging back up, and should be able to bring the Executioner down safely if he can avoid one last final slam. He will disrupt the boss, bringing him below his stun threshold, and should be able to, if he can manage the mob, survive the last little bit of it here. A wild swinging attack comes out from the Executioner. Miso drops low and will be able to use the flask to get back up, dodges safely behind the Executioner to dodge the volcanic slam, and that should be it. Crisply executed gameplay to the end of the Executioner fight by MisoxShiru. DeadRabb1t, however, making quick progress through the zone, and while we are in no boss fights at the moment, I will now bring us back to the focused gameplay where you can see my beautiful face as I continue to talk at a high level of words per minute and at a crisp amount of elocution as best I am able. DeadRabb1t progressing through the second floor of Ogham Manor seems a little bit lost, but should know that if you go down one direction on the first floor to exit the zone, it will be the opposite direction on the second floor. And as you can see, he gets the tell there where he can see the boss pit underneath him and should be able to progress to the end of Ogham Manor quite safely. Now I believe at level 13.5 or so, and finds a strongbox. This yellow strongbox has a couple of possible modifiers, magic packs, or contains additional unique that would be very good for him if he wants to get up to that level 14 before fighting the boss. And we now see MisoxShiru progressing through his Freythorn, doubling back after killing the Executioner here. So it's DeadRabb1t, 2 minutes from Lolcohol, and if Lolcohol, 2 minutes from MisoxShiru, as Lolcohol finishes up his own Executioner fight in a very dangerous position, but will be able to survive that volcanic slam there on the edge of his screen. And you can take a look at the survivability of our 3 players here at the moment. DeadRabb1t, 261 HP, 39 ES. You can see that Lolcohol has 247 HP, 14 ES, and you can see that MisoxShiru has 217 HP, 14 ES. So there's a bit of a difference in the survivability overall of our players, and you can see that that's why DeadRabb1t, in positions like he just was, is able to survive, where he has a slightly higher amount of HP pool, about 20% more than what our other racers have at the moment, especially in comparison to Miso. Let's go ahead and take a focus on Miso as he focuses through Freythorn here, where we can see that Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod is making quick work of several mobs, and he continues to play in this beautiful Lightning Arrow playstyle, the sort of quintessential game flow of the early game Lightning Arrow player, where you're walking backwards, dodge rolling with your WASD as you continue to face one way. Attacking one way and moving another is a somewhat unique feature of Path of Exile 2 compared to other ARPGs. You can't move like this in PoE1 and Diablo 2 and Diablo 4, and so as a consequence, this sort of Lightning Arrow playstyle is sort of a unique perk of playing PoE2. And so he should be in a competitive position here overall, and he should, while he may not be in a competitive position here overall, you can still enjoy the gameplay and know that these are features that are not available in other ARPGs on the market. Finds a checkpoint in order to be able to continue progressing through clearing out all these different rituals as needed to continue progressing through the zones. And we will leave him be for the moment. We'll come back when we get to his King in the Mists, as we see DeadRabb1t making progress toward his own Geonor fight. Now he should be just around the corner from this Geonor arena, only 2% away from hitting the next level though, so we will see if he chooses to go and find 1 or 2 more mobs before he fights this boss. At 13.99, he's going to checkpoint back and go upstairs to find 1 or 2 more monsters, progress here to level 14, unlocking level 5 skill gems, including perhaps Bone Storm or level 5 Essence Drain, where he should be able to kill the boss. Now he upgrades all of his last skill gems there and will now continue to progress. Eschewing Bone Storm for the boss is an unusual choice for our witch player here. Bone Storm, probably the most powerful Act 1 bossing skill aside from Perfect Strike on the warrior, And so as a consequence, I'm a bit surprised to see DeadRabb1t, who is an expert level witch player, a prominent guide author for the class, to not choose Bone Storm. I'd be very interested in the post-game chat to ask him why, if he hit level 14, he didn't decide to go for Bone Storm. But we can see that his absolutely insane chaos damage over time means that he definitely did not need to take Bone Storm if he did not want it. He does have plus chaos damage as well as plus level to chaos skills on his gear, and perhaps he felt that he was more likely to get consistent damage given the particular affixes on his gear. We will see him exit into the second half of the Geonor fight here. He should have a particularly safe time using Sprint to invalidate the animations we all feared in 0.1. He has a completely full level 10 life flask. It should be safe to continue and progress on to the other half of the Geonor fight. Dodges the freezing gale, and now we'll just need to dodge some icicles. Still on that level 1 chess piece, getting chilled as he dodges into the middle of that ice path. Should be safe here if he can dodge just one more time. Gets clipped by the last ice beam, but is safe, throwing down that chaos dot onto Geonor. Now just needs to dodge the ice spikes. Should be particularly safe. Gets frozen here, and there will be a head down slam, but he will be able to dodge roll and sprint out of the AoE from that slam. Takes another sword swipe here. Freezing Gale will clip him, but he will not get frozen again by the second thing here. Now there will be blood beams. Should be able to dodge all of these quite safely, using that dodge roll to great effect, using him to create distance between that, and DeadRabb1t will take the first place finish in our run, 49 minutes and 58 seconds in by my timer, 49:30 by others. Congratulations to DeadRabb1t for a decisive victory in race 1. Lolcohol entering into Ogham Manor floor 3 at the moment, and should be in a competitive position to be able to take position 2. Should be just fine here as Lolcohol continues to progress through the 3rd floor, only about 2 minutes behind DeadRabb1t's position here, and should be just fine. You'll notice that he's a couple percent away from hitting his own level 14 en route to the boss, and should be just fine here as well. Leveling up to Colossal Weapon, taking some additional strength, has 234 tooltip damage on his explosive grenade, which is a very, very high level of damage. Like I said, 250 is the sort of exceptional damage mark. And so when you see Lolcohol with that 235, he's not quite at the ceiling that you might expect, but he is in a very comfortable position in terms of his boss fight damage. Let's see how he can do, and then we will take a visit to MisoxShiru as well on the bottom right of your screen, who's progressing on his own King of the Mists. So all of our players in a very good position. Miso remains in a very difficult race to get a sub 1 hour finish, but should be able to pull it off if he can play very cleanly. And now we are watching Lolcohol continue to progress through his Geonor fight. At 51 minutes and 27 seconds, his best possible finish to this fight is around a 54 flat, pre-stacking those gas grenades where he knows that Geonor will summon. And now he should be able to fire the explosive grenades and should be just fine. You'll notice big chunks of damage from these grenades here, even as Geonor walks off of that first initial pile, and we should be able to see a comfortable and early phase 1 from our Grenadier. So that is the end of the end of phase 1 for Lolcohol. We're going to go ahead and go back to the balanced perspective as we try and give you some insight on MisoxShiru's King of the Mists fight, but he decides that he needs some more flask charges and is going to go instead reset at the checkpoint, farm up some more flask points, so we will go back to the Lolcohol Geonor fight for the moment. And now we are on to phase 2 as the fight continues to progress. Lolcohol, now in phase 2, should be very comfortable here, continuing to progress, pre-stacking those gas grenades underneath the feet of the dire wolf here. And should, if he can get easy animations, be able to avoid a poetry phase, his tooltip damage is certainly high enough. Gets clipped by the ice beam and needs to play a little bit carefully, will be able to escape. And now he's in danger of poetry happening here. He should be able to stun the wolf out of this ice animation if he's careful in order to avoid that dreaded poetry phase. And instead, he will get poetry, so we will see a 40-second stall out from Lolcohol. So we're going to go back to the balanced scene while we wait for that and watch Miso finishing up his phase 1 on the King of the Mists. So looking at the bottom left of your screen, you can continue to see combat for Miso finishing up King of the Mists, and Lolcohol on the top right of your screen will be in a safe position here using big gas grenades to clear out these mobs. I will say that the way that he's approaching this, staying in the middle of the arena, is why he's getting clipped by Geonore's dashes across the center of the arena so much. The typical strategy instead to hug the place where the fog meets the center clear area and just walk in a circle, which makes it a little bit easier for you to dodge, creating more distance between you and Geonore as he dodges at you. Lolcohol in a very dangerous position there, gets caught by an ice beam, will get hit by a second one, and is able to survive. 291 HP is well above average for this fight. His effective HP, including ES at 305, as well as with some cold res keeping him alive. And so that at 5347 is a dead Geonore, but looks like he's going to double back and do Candlemass at this point. So we'll focus Miso as we continue to make some progress here toward our phase 2 King of the Mists, dodging all the way, has run out of mana flasks once again and is in a very difficult position with the lower DPS of his lightning arrow, lightning rod build, but playing the build very well. And I'm looking forward to see what he chooses in race 2, walking carefully on top of those spell totems and will eventually bring them down, surviving quite comfortably. Does pick up a level 4 skill gem as well as the Gem Bloom Skull in order to, I imagine, get Herald of Thunder, though there are various defensive options available to him as well. And now we will take a look at Lolcohol, who's fighting Candlemass, and that should be the time for Lolcohol. 5440 or so is his time. So that should be a particularly good time there as well. And now we will ride along with MisoxShiru through the end of the map as he enters Ogam Manor Ramparts. And so Miso, now finding a yellow strongbox, has dead-ended on one side of Ogam Manor Ramparts and should be in a beautiful position here as well to continue progressing through. Slightly lower damage on the lightning arrow, lightning rod, but with multi-shot on the lightning rods, you'll notice that he's doing big chunk damage to these mobs as he continues to progress on through. Playing very well in a lot of these boss fights with the lower flask charges. So I'm actually very impressed with his boss fighting gameplay. Essence of the Body is a huge survivability boost if he wants to take it, but I think that he's a bit worried about making up time and chooses not to take the safer defensive option there, instead continuing to progress all the way through here. I'm very interested to see if Miso at any point decides to go back to town to pick up a level 10 flask, especially having seen him run out of flasks in a number of different cases. And you can see, yes, in fact, he did take Herald of Thunder and will be continuing to progress on through here, dodging rares, dodging very few mobs, and now continuing to progress through. By far the most impressive combat of the players is the fact that Miso has been able to do all of this with so few flash charges available. Now going to go for Innervate on Lightning Rod, I believe. And now has the level 4 skill gems available there as well, and we'll be leveling those up to deal that increased damage. Should be a little bit stronger here. I wish I could see his bow mods, but he should be in a safe position to continue progressing as well with his current DPS. So overall, our first place finisher, DeadRabb1t, with a time around 47 minutes, Lolcohol with a time around 54 minutes, and Miso on pace for what could be something like a 103. So very close race between the three players, a couple of minutes between each of them. You've noticed that they made a couple of different mistakes from one another and a couple of the same mistakes with all three players getting lost on the layout read in Mausoleum of the Praetor. So I think this is going to be a very competitive race too, even as Miso is a bit far off of the other two racers. I think that there's a bit of build difference that we'll see coming out if he chooses to play something else in the second race. Now he's going to take a bunch of damage here. We'll see what position he finishes in the race, but he should be in a safe position on his own. Yes. Now he's being very conscious about making a lot of map progress, but perhaps bypassing a little bit more XP than he otherwise could have. Finds the bridge across the pit in the middle of Ogam Manor floor 1, so Candlemass should be on the other side here, and he will grab the checkpoint, and here he's going to go. We will see a beautiful Candlemass fight, no doubt, from MisoxShiru. Skips the Psalm of Madness, cancels, will pre-stack some lightning rods, and now we should be in a safe position for him to progress here. Struggling a little bit with that lightning arrow, lightning rod damage, perhaps on a lower level bow than we might have otherwise expected. Does about a fifth of the boss's overall HP. Now continuing to dodge the mechanics. You can see that he's very familiar with the boss combat, getting hit by these bosses on his squishier build, but his build choice does lack a little bit of the DPS of the other options, gets a ton of damage and stun off onto the boss during that blast attack from Candlemass, and should be in a safer position. Dodges these crescents of flame here as well as the sword swings, and should be totally fine to finish here in a safe position. Once again out of mana flasks though. Now he's going to be forced to finish up with, imagine, vanilla bow shots. Should be safe to finish there as well. Will get the Candlemass essence as well as an Artificer's Orb. Again, I would like to see Miso go back to town to grab a better flask. These fights would be a lot easier if he just grabbed a little bit more mana regen as well. But he's making good time and progress. This is by no means a bad run at all. And so it should be particularly good. For the rest of the run, MisoxShiru continuing to make progress through Ogam Manor. The competitors have unmuted, but I want to bring you guys cleanly through the end of race 1 before we finish there. So, should be fine for MisoxShiru. He's kiting out these mobs very, very deliberately, but perhaps leaving a little bit of XP on the table. He tries to make his way through Ogam Manor here. You can see, for example, he leaves a fair number of these mobs with a slight amount of HP left, where 1 or 2 extra lightning arrow attacks would make things safer there. But he's being very, very diligent and, in fact, quite aggressive about continuing to make progress. Beautiful dodge roll to survive there. Has no life flasks available. Should be able to survive if he can bring down this pack just to be able to get to the next checkpoint, which should be around the corner from him. And it looks like he is able to recognize that. Now down onto the next floor, but still no level 10 flask. We'll see a very clean read here. He exits the correct direction from this area here and will be level 12 now, 2 levels behind where the others finished at this point. So he's going to have very low DPS and very few flash charges available. Finds himself in the middle of a mob, will be in a very difficult position. Magic packs running over top of him. He's going to be at an XP penalty, not going to get as much as he could from these mobs. Has to use a bunch of life flash charges in order to be able to kite at this mob without dying. You can see that he's getting changed by these fire explosions. Will be able to dodge roll just as the tail end of that fire explosion animation comes out. The multi-proj comes out, as well as the Herald of Thunder to clear out the rest of the mob. And he, with the lightning arrow, lightning rod, should be able to continue progressing. Now at 235 HP with 14 ES, so closer to the survivability of the other players, despite being 2 levels lower. And should, when he gets around the corner, be able to find the Geonor Arena just off the top left edge of his screen, but will be in a difficult position, cornering himself against this door here, chooses the dodge roll back out, careful to not step into the bundle of the blood pool, and will find the checkpoint here. Will he go into Geonor without upgrading his flask? He will! The Madman! The Madman's gonna do it without the flask? Miso, you're flexing on all of us! Why would you do this without the flask? I can't believe this. Unbelievable confidence here from Miso to take on this lower level fight without this flask. Beautiful positioning from these early lightning rods, and you can see that he's going to position more in the middle of the arena, knows where Geonor will stand, wants to stack those lightning rods there, careful to not place them too early in order to spend his precious mana though, and we will see what happens. Consumes Candlemass's essence to be at 295 HP and 14 ES. Will continue to try to kite Geonor back into the middle of the arena. Should be able to do so. Geonor steps confidently back over top of that Frost Bomb, takes the exposure as well as the lightning rod damage, and Miso very careful to not spend his flask charges until he's at the absolute minimum amount of mana. Geonor doing a beautiful job collaborating with Miso to stand still on top of this pile of lightning rods, taking an absolute shellacking of lightning damage from Miso's build. You can see that Miso, once again in difficult straits managing his mana flask, should be able to progress to phase 2 with around half a flask available. He will need to make use of the additional wolves summoned during phase 2's poetry subphase in order to refill his flasks, or else he's going to be in a very difficult position. And so he should be fine. He's actually playing very aggressively here in terms of conserving his flasks. I disagree with someone in Twitch chat who's saying he's popping his pots too aggressively. Miso is using them as defensively as he even possibly could. And this should be a fastest possible 105 540 or something similar as we progress into phase 2. Keep a close eye on the bottom left of your screen, taking a look at his mana flask here. Gets exposure off into the boss, piling up the lightning rods, making sure he gets the highest possible amount of exposure before doing the more mana intensive lightning arrow attacks will be a very good way to get out more DPS with these fluid fast scourges. Stands carefully positioned to dodge these ice shards and will do so effectively. Throws out frost bomb onto the new position of the boss and gets poetry phase. So we're looking for him to play very aggressively in killing these wolves to get the additional flask charges that they create. And just keep an eye on that mana flask. You want to see it recharging if you're a MisoxShiru fan, because otherwise we're going to have a very slow fight with vanilla bow attacks in order to kill all of these enemies. But he's doing a good job dodging side to side to get on top of these lightning rods. He gets very low and drops the health flask. That's not going to be a difficult thing for Miso to manage, though. Lower health flasks, he can dodge Geonor's attacks, but lower mana flasks and he can't do damage to Geonor. Geonor cooperates quite nicely, jumping immediately on top of the already piled up lightning rods from the wolf poetry phase, and now Miso should be able to do significant damage to Geonor as he stands on top of all of these lightning rods. Geonor, with a short jump, will stay on top of the lightning rods for the moment before eventually using his blood slam to get away from them. And now Miso, positioning carefully, he's now out of mana flasks and is in a very difficult position with about 45% of the boss's HP remaining, switching to those vanilla bow shots, doing decent chunks of around 80 damage at a time, but he's going to need 40 or 50 more of these attacks in order to bring Geonor down. However, a player of Misu's knowledge and skill, this should not be a particular challenge, especially as we see him getting some mana regen back up and using that to stun Geonor while he's in particularly static animations. Again, that animation and mechanic knowledge coming to the fore, and now we have an opportunity for him to recharge those flasks again, as these wolves give a greater number of flask charges than is typical of general monsters. So we're hoping to see 1 or 2 more flask uses generated out of all of this. You can see that there's 1 more use available. Now there are 2. So he's doing a good job using these wolves for their intended purpose, refilling his lower level flask. Gets run over by Geonor, and we want to make sure that he survives. Uses the life flask very aggressively, panicking even a little bit to use his mana flask there as well, generating more mana flasks though as he continues to progress through the phase. Only a quarter of Geonor's HP, and it looks to have 2 more flask uses available. Will pile up the lightning rods underneath Geonor's feet, dodging the blood beams very effectively, and should be able to continue through the rest of the fight. Gets the blood slam animation out, has about 15% of Geonor's HP remaining, though. Should be able to bring it back down. Almost gets stopped down by the combination of the blood boil and the freezing gale, but that blood beam is not able to slow him enough for Geonor to attack him aggressively. The ice spikes will come out, and despite the lower mana available, we should be able to see MisoxShiru finish up a beautifully executed fight in 106. What a gorgeous complete run there from MisoxShiru, demonstrating a very high level of mechanical skill in managing those lower level flasks and doing beautiful boss fight and combat all the way through there. What a gorgeous set of combat mechanics for the lightning rod, lightning arrow player. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the PoE2 Racing Cycle Content Creator Casual Cup weeknight races brought to you by Crimson Casts, still seeking a sponsor. And here we have race 2, where we have DeadRabb1t on grenades, Lolcohol on lightning arrow, and MisoxShiru on EDC. I started the timer, chat. Don't yell at me. I'm sorry. I had to press so many buttons in my setup. Timer is on my screen. People, can you guys just tell the chatters that aren't watching my chat that I'm the one with the timer in the commentary, if they want the timer in the commentary? All right, so now we're going to see all 3 of our racers making their way through. Lolcohol, in fact, has our first entrance to the boss arena of race 2 on our casual cycle here. So Lolcohol on lightning arrow should have a slightly more difficult time against the boss than he did last time, and we will see how the racers adapt to these different builds. Lightning arrow, of course, compared to what Lolcohol played last time, which was grenades, has a slightly worse set of beach skills for dealing with the Miller and his mobs. It's a safer fight because lightning arrow makes it easier to deal with the zombies, but a slower fight because you have less DPS than you have on the crossbow at level 1. So as a consequence, the bow-based build may be a little bit more difficult for him to get off of the beach early. Meanwhile, our other two racers are in the same position, so we're going to go back to focusing on the balanced view, where Lolcohol finishes 1 or 2 seconds ahead of the others, and then both MisoxShiru and DeadRabb1t are close behind. DeadRabb1t being careful to dodge those slams, Unearth and Essence Drain Contagion, Unearth and Wither being the tools for Miso as he tries to get through here. DeadRabb1t and Miso locked in competition as they continue all the way through. Lolcohol considers shopping but doesn't have the money to do so. Gonna go ahead and cut that lightning rod, and now he has the classic combination of lightning arrow, lightning rod online already. Lolcohol, our first player out into Clearfell, should encounter the same base layout that he saw last time. SSF Fate of the Vol has only one base Clearfell layout available because of the way that the map is positioned, and so as a consequence he should know exactly where to go based on his experience from last run as well as from any other practice runs that the people did this week. Miso considers all of his different shopping options here, would not in reality have been able to afford any of those, and does not choose to purchase any of them, perhaps keeping in spirit with the idea that he wouldn't be able to afford anything. Lolcohol using that classic walk backwards, fire forwards style for the lightning arrow. Meanwhile, DeadRabb1t kiting together a larger mob of wolves here, going to be in a difficult position with the fragmentation rounds. Let's take a quick focus here on DeadRabb1t as we see him adjusting to grenades. You notice that he's being run down by a huge number of monsters here, and we will see what he does with this extra level 1 skill gem. If he's following Lolcohol's guide strictly, he will be cutting Contagion. Instead, we will see him cutting Frost Bomb, which is what I would recommend. So now he will have slightly better elemental damage than Lolcohol did on his own crossbow run, and so he should be fine. He now finds the League mechanic. We'll be able to do this in order to get a transmute, and that should mean that future fights for DeadRabb1t should be a bit easier. We'll go ahead and focus Lolcohol, though, for the moment, as Lolcohol continues to make progress across the zone here, and is fighting our first player to fight Bira. Keep an eye on the bottom left of your screen, though, as DeadRabb1t transmutes, and we're looking to see his crossbow upgrades. He takes that, he gets increased movement speed on the boots, has a transmute available, gets some cold res on the circlet, does not transmute his crossbow, which I believe is a mistake. Transmuting your crossbow, pretty significant upgrade, and now all three of our players are fighting Bira at the same time. Lolcohol the first to do so, and should be in a position to compete against the other racers to be the first to enter Grellwood. Gets an Orb of Augmentation, a Smithing Hammer, a Tattered Robe, grabs everything, will be able to continue progressing, consumes that Tattered Robe, and now we'll be on to the Grellwood. We see a makeshift crossbow drop, and that has 41% increased elemental damage as well as 8 strength, but that is an item level modifier that's too high for Mr. Rabbit to equip right away, and so he will need to keep that in his back pocket. That increased elemental damage going to be a moderately useful prefix for grenades. Flat damage is in fact more effective than that modifier in most cases, and so he should be totally fine in the far future. And now we will take a look at Miso, as Miso has entered the Grellwood. All three of our players particularly close to each other. Lolcohol looking for something. I don't know what. Lolcohol has already seen the exit to the Grellwood. I don't know what he's going for. Oh, he's looking for the skill gem. That's what Lolcohol's looking for. MisoxShiru and DeadRabb1t in similar positions. So we're going to go back to the balanced view, including my face, as we see DeadRabb1t and Miso both fighting Ariadne, the Forgotten Witch. Volatile plants for MisoxShiru going to be a difficult modifier, and Lolcohol getting completely owned by the Clearfell layout. This happens to some percentage of runs, and so he's going to checkpoint hop to the other side. We should see pretty classic support gem choices. They sent each other build guides in the Discord call that we are in, so they should be in a safe position to continue on through. Running low on life flasks, though. Let's go ahead and focus DeadRabb1t. You can see he's out of life flasks, doing his best Miso impression, trying to do the Giga Chad gameplay, but he dies against Ariadne, unfortunately, due to that lack of flash charges. So that means that we will now have to follow up with Lolcohol and MisoxShiru. Miso grabbing that support gem and should be able to cut, probably Unleash for Contagion is the most popular choice. We will need to see what he chooses to do, but progressing on through here quite nicely, using Entangle alongside Contagion. Like I said, one of the other popular options here is the sort of accelerant for your early contagions, and you can see that those plant skills are very, very effective. The other nice thing about plant spells as a backup for Essence Drain Contagion is that if you get a wand with physical modifiers, increased physical spell damage, plus level to physical spells, that those modifiers help plant spells, and so Entangle can be imbued with some additional potency as a consequence of that, which is a relatively common occurrence in Act 1 for wand users. So Miso with those plant skills probably in a little bit more of a secure position in terms of his skill choice than the unearth reliance that we saw from DeadRabb1t earlier, but time will tell. All of our racers making their way through the Growwood looking for the Grim Tangle, as well as the exit toward the Red Veil. We should be in a good position to continue here. And we find MisoxShiru has found the waypoint, and we will see Lolcohol has found the league mechanic. So you can see that Lolcohol in the top center of your screen, low on flask charges, once again doing his Miso impression. And this is why I say that Miso's gameplay last round was so impressive. You see that DeadRabb1t ran out of flask charges against Ariadne and had to back off, and now Lolcohol ran out of flash charges against the league mechanic and has to back off, and that's why I was so impressed with the forward and aggressive gameplay in similar positions from Miso last run. Torn gloves available for Lolcohol here. He identifies them, gets some ES and life per kill, and then transmutes his bow, and will be able to continue to progress. And now we see DeadRabb1t and Lolcohol finding the Red Veil at about the same time, but DeadRabb1t has already killed Ariadne and should be able to continue. DeadRabb1t, in my personal favorite of the layouts for Red Veil, in the Red Veil PDF that people share in the Campaign Codex Discord, this is called Hook. That's the most common name for it among speedrunners, but I refer to it as Camel. If you're looking to understand a little bit more about layouts, you can follow my YouTube channel, where I have a layout guide called Map Hack in Your Mind available, and you'd understand why I call this zone Camel. On the bottom left of your screen, you can see that Miso has now grabbed the Grim Tangle waypoint, and Lolcohol is progressing against Ariadne. Let's go ahead and watch that Ariadne fight from Lolcohol, shall we? We can see him progressing here. You can see that Ariadne walking off of those piles of lightning rods. It's very, very difficult. It does significantly less damage than the other two builds, especially at these ultra low levels. And so it is the most difficult position for a racer to be in, being very aggressive in managing his mana flasks, and should be in a safe position here. Down at 10% HP for Ariadne, steps off of that, and will get the support gem, where we are likely to see him cut. I imagine Chain is an option for the lightning arrow, as well as something like Concentrated Area. Taking a quick focus back to the balanced scene, though. Hello to Twitch chat, hello to the YouTube commenters later on. And now we can watch our way through here as we see all three of our runners have made their way into the Red Veil at the same time, progressing through those obelisks. You can see that DeadRabb1t is progressing through, trying to find these other obelisks, having difficulty in so doing. These are not racers who have spent hundreds of hours memorizing layouts like the racers that you see in the seasonal races hosted by GGG. These are content creators who focus more on builds and endgame gameplay, and so as a consequence, you'll see them lose a little bit more time to layout reads, but that's more reflective of the typical league start experience. Why did Lolcohol put Chain on his basic bow shot? So when you are clearing with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, you don't want Chain on because it reduces the per hit damage of Lightning Arrow. But when you are killing a boss with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, you want Chain to activate your Lightning Rods more times. So you move Chain back and forth from your basic shot to your Lightning Arrow in order to get more Lightning Arrow damage for clear against mobs without Chain, and more Lightning Rod damage with Chain against bosses. It's a good question. Let's go ahead and take a focus on MisoxShiru for the moment. And so MisoxShiru on the Essence Drain Contagion with the plant spells just hit, I believe, level 4 and is in a safe position, has his minions available as well as his Entangle, finds this Rust Obelisk. Now we get to see the potency of that early Essence Drain Contagion, as well as the choice of Entangle to clear these bosses should be particularly strong. So now we see Miso in first position, first player to fight the Rust King, should be able to clear him a little bit more effectively than we saw from the Essence Drain performance from DeadRabb1t last run because he has chosen the mildly superior plant spells compared to Frostbomb, and so he should have slightly better time. That said, he doesn't have very good weapon modifiers just yet, and our other two runners remain in close pursuit. Tense crossbow, though, for DeadRabb1t. We're going to have to focus that as he identifies this item here. He just picked up a yellow crossbow, and this could be a particularly important thing, but does not have a wisdom scroll to identify it, though. The best possible thing would be something like 1 to 10 lightning damage alongside, say, 55% physical damage and +2 projectile spells, but we'll have to see what DeadRabb1t gets, so when next time we see him with a wisdom scroll, you guys will have to shout out what the modifiers are for me as we see MisoxShiru finishing up his Rust King fight, and so we'll focus on that. But I'm trusting you, chat, to keep an eye on DeadRabb1t's yellow crossbow and tell me what the modifiers are. Miso bringing the Rust King down to 1/5 HP, getting stunned. And with that damage over time, together with the Wither stacks, he should be just fine, dodging out of the way from these Iron Spike attacks, and should be able to collect here. Sees a pair of rough greaves as well as a couple of yellow items. Those yellow boots have an opportunity to be a significant survivability boost for him, as well as mobility, should he get the 10% movement speed here. We'll take a look at DeadRabb1t as he finishes up. We want to keep an eye, again, chat, I am trusting you guys. Can we see what the modifiers are for DeadRabb1t's crossbow? Even if he's not in focus at the time, I'm relying on Twitch chat to look at DeadRabb1t's crossbow when he identifies it. And he has finished items there, finds a yellow spear as well. And you can see that Lolcohol is progressing toward his last Rust Obelisk here as well. DeadRabb1t back into town. I simply must see what is on this crossbow, so we're going to keep him in focus for the moment. He IDs it, and we see 41% increased physical damage. I didn't get a chance to see the other modifiers. He's clearing out his inventory, and he identifies these yellow boots, and they have increased armor but no movement speed. So overall, not a very potent set of loot compared to what's available. He has only 400 gold. Now we see Lolcohol fighting on to what I believe is his last Rust Obelisk there as well. Using his regex, you can see that he's shopping for some other items. Won't be able to find a crossbow upgrade compared to what he already has. He has 41% increased physical damage, 36% wed, no +2. So it's sort of the middle of the road crossbow. It's going to be above average damage, but we'll go back to the balanced scene. DeadRabb1t's crossbow, not a max win, not a max loss, but so far it was all right. Now Lolcohol continuing to progress through the Red Veil boss fight here with the lightning arrow, lightning rod, trying to find that bow upgrade, dodge these iron spikes, as well as kite together the mob in a safer position. The area damage from the lightning rods should be particularly effective at clearing this mob if he can continue to progress there. They Call Me Talks in chat asks why DeadRabb1t didn't pick up the +2. He couldn't afford it. That was the thing. He couldn't afford it. Also, it was on the lower level base. It was on the makeshift base instead of the tense base, but Lolcohol progressing through here, and now we will focus MisoxShiru, who's making his way through the Grim Tangle as the first of our three runners. Miso in first position so far. And now should be in a safe position there where Miso making his way through Grim Tangle, continuing to roll away here. Using minimap instead of overlay map makes it a bit harder for me to figure out exactly what the correct layout is, but it looks like he's going down and right, which are the generally correct positions for SSF Fate of the Vol, so he should be finding the exit here soon, no matter which base layout that he's in. Now he finds the Rotten Druid. We'll see if he chooses to fight him. Looks like no. MisoxShiru doubling out of that boss fight, which would be very slow on his current spell setup. Now we can take a quick gander at DeadRabb1t. Miso dropping very low too. Those volatile mushrooms is going to now have Essence Drain available at level 6. We'll take a quick look at DeadRabb1t with that strong crossbow, but no chest piece available. Should be struggling just a little bit. Hits level 6. We'll be able to upgrade to those level 3 skill gems, including the one dropped by the Rust King. Should be just fine. And Lolcohol in the bottom right of your screen, a little bit behind these other two racers. MisoxShiru, though, in first position remains, will skillfully dodge the shotgun fungal volley from the Rotten Druid, and now should be in a safe position with Essence Drain and Wither to be able to do plenty of damage. Stepping carefully around those yellow volatile mushrooms and should be in a safe position Fungal Volley comes out again, and he should be just barely fine to finish this fight. Meanwhile, DeadRabb1t on the bottom left of your screen, getting lost a little bit in the Grim Tangle layout, one of the more frustrating zones to read, but has found the League mechanic, going to get that extra level 3 skill gem, which should be useful to upgrade his flash grenade. One of the downfalls you see of minions there is MisoxShiru's minions sacrifice themselves to the middle of that fungal pit. He grabs that support gem there as well. Now we can take a quick follow-up with Lolcohol as he clears the League mechanic in the middle of the Grim Tangle. Should be in a good position here to start making up some ground, especially as he's able to equip that short bow if he can identify it and get good crafting bases there as well. Sorry, had to mute to cough there for a second, folks. And now Lolcohol dropping low in the middle of this, chased by the temporal bubble, needs to be particularly careful as he can get caught by this temporal bubble. And now he's in a very difficult position, tries to dodge roll out of all of this, will be able to get out. I can't believe it. Now using the lightning arrow to try and chop down this mob as it continues to pursue him. Lolcohol in a very difficult position, able to get out. You can see these yellow volatile mushrooms continue to explode under his feet, and very late dodge rolls means that he's putting himself in a very risky position here. Both of our other racers, though, in the Cemetery of the Eternals, MisoxShiru and DeadRabb1t, both grabbing their regal orbs, continuing to make progress through this Cemetery of the Eternals as Lolcohol on the bottom right of your screen continues through the Grim Tangle, if that is your viewing preference. MisoxShiru trying to find his all the way through, and DeadRabb1t zigzagging once again to get through Cemetery of the Eternals, a slightly slower map reading technique than what is the meta. Miso, however, has some pretty strong items, gets some strength on that amulet, slams a little bit of spell damage on the wand, not too much though, not enough to be super duper impactful. And so MisoxShiru with the Essence Drain Contagion should be able to clear through these denser mobs in Tomb of the Consort, and it should be a little bit more difficult and dangerous for DeadRabb1t. So we'll follow along with DeadRabb1t for the moment. DeadRabb1t now taking those projectile damage notes should be in a decent position as he continues to progress through the zone, dodge rolling through these larger packs of enemies. No chest piece available for him at the moment means that these projectile reflection eternal knights are exceptionally threatening him in this particular run. And I know that Rabbit, in the run that we did together a few days ago, got frustrated with the claustrophobia of this zone, which is actually worse on crossbows than it is on Essence Drain Contagion, so he might find himself playing a bit more defensively than he's used to doing. Now, Lolcohol finally makes his way on the bottom right of your screen into Cemetery of the Eternals. MisoxShiru, who we're going to focus for the moment, is on Essence Drain Contagion and is the first player to find the rare that drops the support gem. DeadRabb1t, however, is on a boss fight, so we'll continue to focus DeadRabb1t for the moment as he fights Asinia, placing his grenades. You can see that he's not very comfortable on the skill, and he's placing the grenades, and then Asinia is teleporting away from the pile. That could be frustrating for someone who's inexperienced with the mechanics and timings of placing grenades super efficiently underneath bosses. So as a consequence, it can be very, very, very difficult for new grenade racers to get optimal damage out, even though he has a particularly good crossbow with those stacked offensive modifiers. DeadRabb1t, though, making good use, stuns Asinia there, and at 1930, we see the first of our players to bring down one of these tomb bosses. Gets a beautiful chest piece upgrade there available, has some stats on it that are going to help him to meet equipment requirements. Continues to progress. 1930 is a minute and a half faster than we got from any racer in round one. So far, race 2 is shaping up to be quicker overall for all three racers than it was last time around. Take a quick look here at MisoxShiru. He's grabbed that support gem, continuing to make quick progress through Tomb of the Consort, and should be in a position to close down some ground to DeadRabb1t. He also finds this League mechanic here, gets an opportunity for a big amulet, but decides not to do it. Has instead already equipped another choice there. Goes ahead and will cut another option here for, I believe that was Zenith, if I'm not mistaken, for Contagion. And now we see another level 3 support and level 3 skill gem going to be cut for something. Looks like he spent some time in the menu, wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. I expected it to be either a Contagion upgrade or perhaps an investment in Pounce. We will have to see what we can get him away from there. Now MisoxShiru making progress on that boss fight. DeadRabb1t progressing through Tomb of the Consort, and Lolcohol dealing with the League mechanic. Let's give Lolcohol some screen time. Our favorite South African guide, author, and content creator, trying to get a regal orb that will be particularly important for his build progression. Like I said, that level 10 bow can be an exceptionally important base to invest on. And if any of our 3 lightning players, as it is their turn to run the build, use their currency wisely, they have an opportunity to get a pretty significant upgrade there. A pair of suede bracers there as well for Lolcohol, as he has the opportunity to perhaps get some damage in that slot. Now we can see that MisoxShiru has finished the fight against Desinia and will focus DeadRabb1t as he progresses on to the second tomb boss. DeadRabb1t pre-stacking those grenades as well as the frost bomb underneath the feet of Draven. Gets some decent chunk damage out here. Still looking for an upgrade for that sturdy crossbow at level 10. That base can drop from Draven, so there is an opportunity here for a pretty significant item upgrade to be the outcome of this fight. Big chunk damage to the green seals coming out from Asinia, as summoned by Draven, and DeadRabb1t dodges skillfully away from all those, dodge rolls away from the shotgun attack that comes out from Draven, and will be in a safe position here. 22 flat. Very, very quick time here. Has a pair of yellow pilgrim vestments dropped to him as well as some rope cuffs that he chooses not to pick up an ID. Those gloves that having the potential to be a significant damage upgrade. Now let's take a look at Lolcohol, who is now making his way into Tomb of the Consort for the first time, having finished the League mechanic, slightly slower and farther behind the other 2 runners. And now should be in a safe position. You can see just off the top edge of his screen, that's a dead end, but he's going to get brought down by projectile reflection. This is the difficulty of Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod in Tomb of the Consort. It's probably the most difficult zone in Act 1 for the build. DeadRabb1t, however, making quick work against Lachlan. Lachlan proving particularly difficult as he tries to dodge the slams and is unable to place his grenades consistently underneath the boss's feet. All of these 3 builds showing their upside with beautiful damage coming out from all 3 players, but also some difficulty in execution, getting that Essence Drain contagion to catch onto mobs, getting those grenades to be placed correctly underneath the boss's feet, and getting those lightning arrows to not activate the projectile reflection from Realm Knights. You can see the real differences in play styles coming to the fore in addition to the differences in damage, which is really nice. But we're at 23-27 as DeadRabb1t brings down Lachlan, the first of our players to do so. Now we will switch back to the balanced build for a minute as we're waiting for our players to find their next bosses, but DeadRabb1t appears to be opening up a bit of a lead. MisoxShiru in second, Lolcohol in third for the moment. Lolcohol has to play in close quarters combat against this Eternal Knight, so we'll go ahead and focus him for the second as he tries to use Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod to make some progress here. Goes ahead and finishes up that rare, has the support gem available, puts it onto Lightning Attunement for Lightning Arrow. A bit of an unusual choice, in fact, for that support gem, because should he find big elemental damage of other kinds, projectile reflection going to mow him down again. Lolcohol being very careful here, out of life flash charges, going to need to be very, very careful here, using Lightning Rod, trying to chop down this mob. Will he be able to survive? Isn't able to get any charges from that mob, and eventually is brought down by the projectile reflection as the Eternal Knight walks to the fore. Apologies, F's in the chat for the other friends there. And now we're going to go ahead and let DeadRabb1t, who is opening a lead for the second consecutive race, and we will put DeadRabb1t back on the main stage here as we wait for our other runners to find bosses. But Miso obliges us and immediately finds Draven, not letting DeadRabb1t open up too large of a gap here. You can see that Miso is keeping in close contact. DeadRabb1t killing that Lachlan at 23-27. Miso currently on pace for something like a 26-30. So about a 3-minute deficit from first to second at the moment. And it's going to be a little bit harder to measure just how far behind Lolcohol is, but we will keep you updated with those splits as they come. Once again, a 23-27 for DeadRabb1t and an impending probably 26-30 or so for MisoxShiru. Miso making quick work. Those minions helping to deal with the Eternal Knight and stalling out Draven, keeping him in place. The damage over time coming out from MisoxShiru onto this, dodging off of the green seals summoned by the sub-unit Asinia, and he should be able to bring down Draven very carefully here. Steps over that soul just to disengage it, and now we can see Miso bringing down the second of the 2 tomb area bosses. Lolcohol, meanwhile, having a very difficult go of it in Tomb of the Consort, projectile reflection, doing a whole lot to make Lightning Arrow more difficult to play, as well as having difficulty finding the boss. I believe in this particular layout that the boss is likely to be to the interior of the zone that you can see so far. So you can see he's walked around the perimeter of the dungeon, and in this particular variation, it looks like the boss arena is likely to be in the middle of that ring that he has walked so far. We will see if that is true as he continues to progress, but at the minute, DeadRabb1t has just brought down the Crowbell. So as a consequence, you will see him invest those passive points into other choices there. Just about to hit level 9 as well, so struggling just the teensiest bit on experience, but we will now see the German rabbit progress through Freythorn. Still looking for that level 10 crossbow upgrade. None in his inventory so far. So his DPS will start to fall off a little bit, though this very strong tense crossbow with that IPD and WED should continue to bolster him just until he gets to level 10, and he may be able to make a trip back to town. Should make a choice here for intelligence if he wanted to equip pounce, instead goes for strength, continuing to just invest in the traditional stats of strength and dexterity for the mercenary player. We will now focus Lolcohol as he fights his first tomb boss, that being Asinia. And Asinia now making her way through here should be just fine. Gets out of the bone cage without breaking the wall, which is a little bit odd. And MisoxShiru on the bottom right of your screen is fighting Lachlan. So Lachlan should be in a position for, excuse me, so Miso should be able to bring down Lachlan here a little bit slower than I anticipated. That was my misestimate. I forgot that he didn't have plus spells on his wand. We're going to see something like a 28 or a 28-20, it looks like, as Miso makes progress there. So a 23-27 for Rabbit, and something like 4.5 minutes time deficit as MisoxShiru gets a 27-57. So a 4.5 minute deficit from first to second, and Lolcohol continues to make progress against Asinia, but unfortunately goes down, and we see that the struggles of GGG having triple tapped Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod. Thank you, Fubgun, for promoting Lightning Rod last patch, so it would be triple tapped this patch, and we can watch our favorite streamers struggle to kill bosses with it. You can see that he's not very happy there. Needs to generate a bit more gold. Should be able to find a way to deal with this. Should be able to sell those gloves in his inventory, and will be able to get this short bow with 1 to 4 fire and 1 to all projectile levels. That's a huge damage upgrade. Congratulations to Lolcohol as we root for our boys to not tilt and to play effectively. Now runs back into Asinia with dramatically stronger damage. Is in a position where he has the opportunity to invest even more heavily in this bow, should he so choose. But it would be very difficult if his Regal and Exalt are spent, and then he doesn't happen to hit on either one of those currency slams. Stacks the lightning arrows and lightning rods underneath her feet, and beautiful damage upgrades for Lolcohol mean that he's in a much safer position on this second iteration of the Asinia fight. You can see he's making progress much more quickly. Has his damage gone up quite a lot. Both an upgrade in the base type, going from that level 1 beach bow to this level 5 short bow, as well as getting +1 projectile levels, as well as 1 to 4 fire damage, propelling him much more smoothly here. So this is the damage that we would hope to see on a more confident league start. And now we can see a couple of yellow items drop, none of them particularly relevant to his build. No boots, no gloves, no bow, no quiver, but he will be able to use those for gold as he continues. Goes ahead and exits back out to Cemetery of the Eternals and should be in a fine position. We will now focus Miso as Miso finishes up his Crowbell fight, and I eat a piece of cheese. Delicious. Miso now progressing on to phase 3 of the Crowbell, investing in the skeletal arsonists, uninvesting in the warriors, and investing in the arsonists instead. Chad is asking what kind of cheese. It's sliced American cheese with Ritz crackers. Now we continue to progress through here. We should see Miso starting to struggle a little bit with his damage. No plus spell levels available. No bossing skill chosen, relying on the pure Essence Drain Contagion. No Ober of Storms, no Frost Darts, no Fireball. Other traditional choices for bossing on spells include Volcano, for example. And so he's going to be in an interesting position here as his damage starts to wane. Picks up a yellow Rattling Scepter, though. Should be able to make some comfortable use of that. Goes back to town, has an overfull inventory, and wants to make use of it. And so now we will go back to the balanced view for a moment, so I can say hello to my friends in chat, Snoobay, Craft Brew Girl, Talkative Try, and Blazeworks. The Creator Cup will be a more formal and larger iteration of this same racing concept on my stream in a few weeks. The date isn't announced just yet. We're still organizing with the Creator Cup coaches, but if you'd like to see not just a full Act 1, but a full Act 3 race, and not just content creators, but content creators and professional speedrunner coaches, then that will be some content you can look forward to in the remainder of our wait for the release of 0.5. But DeadRabb1t is now on to his King of the Mists fight, so we will take a look back at that as DeadRabb1t continues to make quick work of this, still relying on that same tense crossbow with increased physical damage and wed, but there is a sturdy crossbow available for him. He's level 9.5 at the moment and won't be able to equip it, so we will see what he can do. Drops that Journeyman's sturdy crossbow of Shining on the ground, though. Doesn't like it for some reason. To update any late arrivers to chat on what the rules are here, the three players played three different builds. DeadRabb1t playing his iconic Essence Drain Contagion, Lolcohol playing his iconic Grenades, and MisoxShiru feeling most comfortable on Lightning Arrow in Race 1. And then they decided, as a best of 3 format, that they would then rotate the builds around. So now you can see DeadRabb1t on Grenades, Lolcohol on Lightning Arrow, and MisoxShiru on Essence Drain Contagion, because they decided it would be fairest for a best of 3 to happen where they all played the different builds in turn. Hopefully that answers the question that's being asked in chat. And so if you want to see different builds in the future, you're welcome to invite other content creators. I love hosting these races, so if there are people out there in the land who want to see monks or maces or spears being played, you're more than welcome to encourage your favorite content creators to reach out to me. Any triptych of streamers are more than welcome to invite to come along and be invited for a Crimson Casts race. I love hosting these things. I love commenting on them, teaching chat and engaging questions there. It would be great there. Now you can see DeadRabb1t progressing into this King of the Mists fight, has a ton of damage. Lolcohol, though, falling low against Lachlan, so we're going to put you in the balanced view so you can get different view of both of these things there. DeadRabb1t makes quick work of the King of the Mists, and we will now focus Lolcohol as he finishes up his Lachlan fight. Should be able to make some progress here. Hopefully, you can see that he has plenty of flash charges available, now in a position where he should be able to finish up the fight if he can avoid these last few slams. Will walk onto the chilled ground, is very slow, but eventually stuns the boss and will bring him down. And that is a 34.09 for our favorite South African streamer. Drops a Regal Orb as well as a couple of yellow items there. A level 10 flask drops on the ground and he doesn't pick it up. He's walking along. He's walking away from the superior damage that's available in that, with the superior charges that are available in that level 10 flash charge. And as we saw, this Lightning Arrow build with a slightly lower DPS than the other builds is much more reliant on those options. And DeadRabb1t picks up a new crossbow. You can actually see that it's the makeshift base. I didn't quite grab what modifiers were on that. If anyone in chat can grab DeadRabb1t's crossbow modifiers, I would love to see what they are. If he ever shows them for even a second, please let me know what the modifiers are there. DeadRabb1t goes back to Hunting Grounds, has finished up his Freethorn, and will be the first of our players to get into Ogham Farmlands with a 35-minute and 8-second time. He's making great pace, though perhaps unlikely to beat his time from last run. Has found the block tile, and I believe knows the read here to walk around it. Sees a rare monster. He's not quite level 10, I don't believe. No, he is level 10. He has a level 10 flask equipped. So he's on great levels, level 10.8. And so as a consequence, DeadRabb1t should have an easy time of XP management over the time. Over the course of the rest of the run, should be able to hit level 14 quite comfortably if he continues to clear mobs as they walk into his screen. No special techniques required for the German streamer to get Gas Grenade online and have a very easy and comfortable Geonora fight. MisoxShiru, meanwhile, is making progress through Freythorn, now onto his own King of the Mists fight. You can see Essence Drain Contagion starting to struggle a little bit as he's failed to find any wand or weapon modifiers for his spellcasting build, and so his DPS a little bit lower than we might have liked to see for him, but he seems to be perfectly comfortable kiting out these longer fights. Like we've said, his actual mechanical prowess in engaging the mobs and in dealing with the bosses is extremely high, and he just seems to be having a bad run of build luck so far today. He should be just fine, and as he makes his way onto the summoning of the King in the Mists himself. Meanwhile, DeadRabb1t, allocating that last stat node, should be on the way out of Ogham Farmlands and into Ogham Village. We're going to ride along with MisoxShiru through this King of the Mists fight, but you're welcome to take a look at the bottom left to see DeadRabb1t, who remains in the current lead, or Lolcohol as he progresses toward his Crowbell. A lot of action on the screen all at once, so you can choose what you are looking at. However, Miso progressing quickly through this first phase, not quickly, progressing methodically through this first phase of the King of the Mists fight, should be in a position where he is able to play very carefully here. Has a little bit low on the life flasks, but plenty of mana, and we're more confident that he's able to dodge the mechanics than that he's able to deal DPS without mana, though. DeadRabb1t has a comfortable time finding Renly's tools on the bottom of your screen, and Lolcohol against Crowbell is having one of the easier fights that's available for Lightning Rod in Act 1, so we can see that people are in their element and thriving. Miso dodges that purple slam, recognizes the animation, now sees the curse come out, stops moving in order to not be imprisoned. His minions joining the fray here should make it a little bit easier. They get broken down by the AoE slam from the King of the Mists. Still a very comfortable fight, methodically making his way down, stacking up Wither, as well as his two different Chaos Dot spells in Essence Drain and Contagion. And so you can see he's methodically working his way, chewing his way through the King of the Mists HP. And so as a consequence, he should have a smooth and comfortable fight. You can see the Crowbell has been finished by Lolcohol, and DeadRabb1t working his way toward the Executioner now. So the Executioner fight upcoming for DeadRabb1t is where we will turn our attention next. Lolcohol making his way to grab Una's loot and progress a little bit further before he goes into the rest of the act. Checking for upgrades there, sees increased energy shield as well as some cast speed on that focus there. Excuse me, critical hit chance for spells, not cast speed, my bad. Got baited there. And now we will follow up with DeadRabb1t, who is stacking exposure as well as grenades underneath the hands of the Executioner, who threatened us only 38 minutes and 51 seconds ago on the Executioner stand. The very same being fought by DeadRabb1t now. Still having a little bit of a difficult time getting these grenades to activate consistently under the boss's feet, a plight with which I am intimately familiar. This is one of the more difficult aspects of grenade gameplay, especially against these mobs that attack you here. The guillotine drops animation is cancelled as DeadRabb1t gets a well-timed stun off with the aid of flash grenades against the Executioner. Additionally, DeadRabb1t, 231 HP, 37 ES, pretty typical amounts of survivability at this point. A little bit on the higher side, a little bit stronger defensively than is normal for this point in the run. However, he's still wearing pilgrim vestments despite being level 11, which means he's lacking a bit of armor, and these physical blows are going to deal a bigger fraction of that, not being reduced by the armor that you could get from the level 11 armor base that would be available at this point in the run. Dodge rolls out of that lever animation and is in a comfortable position to continue into Ogham Manor Ramparts 48 minutes into the run. Lolcohol, however, he's grabbing Una's loot, and MisoxShiru is on a shopping trip where we can see that he's identifying various items, has a ton of intelligence stacked on that amulet, sells it, and he would be able to afford whatever he would like at this particular point on the basis of the sale of that amulet as well as a few of these other items. Grabbed a staff that I didn't see the modifiers for. If anyone in chat is able to grab what those modifiers were for the staff, it would be very, very useful. because I'm very curious to know what's available for Miso here. Grabs Pounce as well as Withering Presence. Still has the Explosive Demise socketed for the Skeletal Arsonists and makes his way through Ogham Village. A shopping trip for DeadRabb1t, though. DeadRabb1t reflexively checking the staves in the shop and then continuing on to Manor Ramparts. Has a strong crossbow, has his level 10 flask, and is in a comfortable position here. Lolcohol struggling a little bit with the layout in Ogham Farmlands. Should be able to make up some time here, though, if DeadRabb1t does not deal with this mob very effectively. Takes big shots here from the multi-proj off screen here, checking his skill allocation despite being overwhelmed by the mobs in the moment. Dodge rolling around, throwing out these grenades, trying to kite the mob over top of things here, and is checking onto multiple things. Finds a sapphire ring and rolls all stats on it, which is actually a very useful modifier in longer formats of this run, where the all stats helps you to meet equip and support gem requirements, but it's not very useful in this shorter Act 1 format. So as a consequence, we will find a difficult time for our German friend here, that ring not rolling any damage or any additional resistance, but he's able to dispatch the mob safely. And now we can take a quick look at Lolcohol's screen, as I check on a set of staff modifiers that chat has linked for me. And it is 80% increased spell damage and some cast speed are the relevant modifiers. No plus levels. Thank you to Greki in chat for linking that to me. Lolcohol now dropping low once again, fighting a rare monster, but decides to run away from it. He's actually in a very difficult position here and decides eventually that he does not want the level 4 skill gem that would come from clearing that rare monster, and instead runs away to the opposite end. Now he will likely find the exit down off the bottom of his screen here. One of the longer possible layouts for Lolcohol, already struggling on the weakest of the 3 builds available in the rotation here. And we will see MisoxShiru in the bottom right and DeadRabb1t in the bottom left come to the fore as we click on the balanced screen while we're between boss fights for all 3 players here. Again, hello to chat. Hello to chat. Hello. While we're between boss fights, how are you guys doing? A shopping trip for Lolcohol does not result in a new bow, which surprises me that he doesn't check for a new bow. Has the opportunity to upgrade his flask and takes my advice to invest heavily in buying a new flask before progressing into Manor Ramparts. DeadRabb1t making progress through the Manor Ramparts here, and we will take a look at Miso as Miso fights his Executioner. Executioner being brought down by the Essence Drain Contagion. A sneaky mechanic that you guys may not be familiar with in Twitch chat is that Essence Drain Contagion does more damage after each jump. And so as a consequence, you will see him cast that contagion onto the mob and then let it jump onto the boss to do more damage. People in Twitch chat are asking if we have the opportunity for Rigor Mortis. Unfortunately, we do not. Rigor Mortis is a league setting that's only available in official races, and this is a very informal thing. We're just playing video games with the boys, timers on screen, but it's not an official race in any way. And so as a consequence, we're just chilling like a villain, playing some casual PoE2 and letting the deaths fall where they may. So for some clarification in chat, we are not excluding anybody. There is a separate event called the Content Creator Cup, which is happening later. The Content Creator Cup is a much larger event than this. This is an informal stream test of my layout and ability to scene transition and keep track of multiple people at the time. Creators like Scorpius are friends of the stream, and they will certainly be invited to future events. I would love to have Scorpius involved in a future race of this format. I think he's a great player. It's just that this was something that was set up informally and at the last minute. And the Content Creator Cup, which is going to be a similar format event, but with much more investment, will have much broader participation. Again, this is not me excluding anybody. This is just the boys happened to be free for a race and we happened to be interested. We're going to have a larger race in the future. Do not confuse the 2 events. To answer another couple of questions in chat, this is a softcore Act 1 race. This is a softcore Act 1 race, where they must do Fraythorn and they must do all of the available side quests. So you have to kill the Crowbell, you have to kill Candlemass, you have to get the spirit from Fraythorn, you have to get Renly's tools, and so on and so forth. So we will definitely get future content creators involved in future races, as well as in the Open Entry Content Creator Cup. So don't worry, guys. We will include everyone as much as we possibly can. MisoxShiru making his way through Mana Ramparts, but DeadRabb1t, now fighting Candlemass, stuns him with those flash grenades, will be making quick work of the Waxy Beast as he continues to pile grenades underneath Candlemass, who does a lot of offense, but is one of the less mobile bosses of Act 1, therefore easier for grenades. Gets a couple of options here, some Tempered Mitts, item level 16, very interesting there, and grabs some upgrade to his HP, 283 HP, 37 ES. And now we can see MisoxShiru struggling a little bit with mob clear on the Essence Rain Contagion. We'll go ahead and bring him to the fore as Essence Rain Contagion drives him all the way to level up. And now we can see with that staff, increased spell damage, increased cast speed, should be smooth sailing for our friend through the end of Act 1. Obviously no plus levels means that things are going to be pretty different. MisoxShiru also making up some time here as well. You'll notice that we saw the Candlemass kill from DeadRabb1t only a moment ago, and MisoxShiru closing the gap a little bit, a chance for a chase down race narrative here, especially if DeadRabb1t does not have a clean fight against Geonor. Now he's playing grenades is DeadRabb1t, and that's a build with which he is less familiar, so we'll have to keep an eye on the gap between our two racers here. If DeadRabb1t dies, especially late in the Geonor fight, we could have a barn burner of a close race on our hands here, an absolute track meet coming in. And on the bottom right of your screen, you can keep an eye on Lolcohol to see how Lightning Arrow is progressing through Fraythorn. As you can see, he's struggling again on the weakest of the three builds. MisoxShiru comfortably bringing down Candlemass here on the first floor of the manor. We'll be able to pick up that 20 base HP. Deceptively useful, grabbing some additional chaos damage here as well. Grabs Candlemass's essence and should be on his way to continue here as well. Has the opportunity to upgrade his flask and hasn't done it so far. Has an additional support gem available and will continue to make progress across the bridge here as we see DeadRabb1t entering the Geonor fight in a moment, progressing through phase floor 2 of the manor. We can see that Lolcohol is fighting King of the Mists with that level 10 flask equipped, stacking up those lightning rods underneath the feet of his wooded foe. And now we can see that that drunken wushu style, the King of the Mists likes to walk off of those piles of lightning rods as we saw in the previous run. And as a consequence, he will be in a more difficult position. Warden Bow of the Lynx, by the way, that Warden Bow is a particularly potent upgrade. I'm surprised to see Lolcohol not invest in it. You can see huge damage coming out from whatever he does have equipped. My God, as he absolutely melts phase 2 King of the Mists. Never mind whatever I was saying. Jesus Christ, what kind of damage does this man have on his bow and quiver? My God. My God. Holy shit. And we can see a close race between our other two racers, so I'm going to bring you guys back to the balanced point of view. You can see DeadRabb1t about to enter Geonor as we see a checkpoint reset from MisoxShiru. No, just barely too late. Miso dying in Ogham Manor. That's going to mean that what might have been a very close race will now rely on a DeadRabb1t death in order to be very, very close between the two. And you can see Gas Grenade being equipped, level 14 available for DeadRabb1t. He's going to cut multi-shot for Gas Grenade, I am sure. He's unchecking things here, carefully menuing his way through, being chased down by MisoxShiru on that Essence Rain Contagion. Very, very close between the two runners. I have to think that if Miso had gotten a +2 staff, this would be an absolute track meet. You can see Lolcohol progressing through Ogham farmlands there as well. And as we see him enter Geonor, we will focus DeadRabb1t for the moment. So we can see the pre-stacking of grenades from DeadRabb1t. At this point, if you are a Miso fan, you are rooting for a DeadRabb1t death, and this should be a close race between the two. You can see Miso progressing through the second floor of Ogham Manor, trying to find his way toward the boss here, and should be in a very comfortable position against the boss here with pretty strong grenade damage, doing big chunks here. Just needs to get Geonor to that halfway point, already taken a third of the necessary HP, trying to keep exposure up with that Frost Bomb, but Dodge rolling around a little bit more, clearly not very comfortable with the mechanics of the fight, and now is able to get the nice fight off there after what a beautiful fight there as well. So now we see him progress into Fight 2, and we see MisoxShiru on the bottom left of your screen progressing through the manor there as well. Should be quite strong. As we see him with a stronger crossbow, waiting through the dialogue to enter Phase 2, being chased down by MisoxShiru though. Miso about to enter into a Geonor fight of his own. Should a single misstep from Rabbit occur, we could have an upset here, where the Essence Strain Contagion player on Miso could chase down DeadRabb1t. DeadRabb1t needs to position carefully here against these ice spikes. A single mistake could cost him the race. Stuns the Direwolf out of his animation. Does not need to worry about that AoE ice attack. And as a consequence, he should get a poetry phase. Phase 1 for MisoxShiru going to come out here as well. While we see the poetry phase, I will give the front to Miso on the Phase 1 Geonor of his own. Executioner fight cleanly finished by Lolcohol as well. Trying to invest as much damage as he possibly can. Gets double flat damage on the ring. Not very helpful for the spellcasting build played by Miso. Phase 1 for Geonor coming out. Going to be able to do a pretty significant amount of damage with this damage over time. Going to be able to just dodge roll very comfortably. Doesn't need to worry about placing those grenades, but we'll bring DeadRabb1t to the front here, trying to dodge those blood spikes. Needs to be a little bit careful, taking some blood degen. If he avoids this slam, he should have it in the bag, and that will be all she wrote. If he can avoid getting caught on these ice spikes, is able to do so, and that is a 52-27 for Rabbit in race 2, and now we will bring Miso up to the front. We will bring Miso up to the front, and now we should see Miso, who's waiting through the dialogue for phase 2, close the gap here. A very strong performance for Miso in race 2. He's going to break that hour mark undoubtedly, and we see some tilt coming out from Lolcohol, who's having a very difficult time on the lightning arrow build. Now, for anyone in chat who's unfamiliar, if you are joining us in the midway through race 2 of our cycle, we have a rule where you have to play all 3 different builds: lightning arrow, grenades, and essence strain contagion. So if you see someone struggling on this lightning arrow build, please know that they are on a weaker build than the other people, and they may have done better on the other builds in previous races. It's definitely something where we have the opportunity for players to seem stronger or weaker than they are, when in reality it's just a difference between builds or between item RNG that we've seen in different runs, and this is just a for fun event. So now we see MisoxShiru in a poetry phase of his own with that stronger flask, a much stronger defensive position than we saw last time. Lolcohol on the bottom right of your screen is going to be in a strong position as well to make it into Ogam Manor. Again, just trying to get around that hour mark, has the opportunity to do so. With Candlemass, it'll be pretty difficult, but he should be able to meet or exceed the 106 set on Lightning Arrow by MisoxShiru in the last run. Now we see poetry phase is over for MisoxShiru, has to avoid these pounces. We'll see the ice beams coming out from the roof for MisoxShiru. Carefully placed dodge rolls, beautiful DPS uptime, continuing to cast Essence Strain against this boss, just doing as much as he possibly can to keep the boss making progress. Dodges out of the way of that Blood Slam, and we see Lolcohol has entered Ogam Manor here. So there is a chance, not a particularly good one, but a chance that if Miso dies in this fight and then dies again, Miso now in dire straits will take a bunch of ice beams, but is able to survive 286 HP, 37 ES, apparently the key amount that you need to survive taking those ice beams. Can someone type Monka S in the chat on my behalf? What a close call that was. Beautiful positioning there from MisoxShiru, an aggressive flask usage to keep him alive. A second poetry phase for our caster player, a shopping trip coming out from Lolcohol that I just want to take a look at. What's he looking for here? He's looking for some cold res, perhaps, looking for some boots, just trying to see what he can get an upgrade for. 1-4 lightning damage, very good, and increased attack speed on that quiver, so some upgrades here for him as well. And then we bring Miso back up as poetry phase comes down to the end. Nice quiver upgrades there for Lolcohol. And now Poetry Phase ends, only 15% remaining HP for Miso as he tries to bring down the Direwolf here, dodging these blood spikes, keeping beautiful DPS uptime, dodge, roll, and then cast, dodge, roll, and then cast, avoids the Freezing Gale, and now should be able to bring down the Direwolf with a time of 55-44. A very close race between our first two finishers there. Beautiful times, only around 3 minutes separating first and second in this race, and now we give Lolcohol the stage as he progresses through Ogham Manor, searching for the Candlemas as well as trying to go for Geonor. He collects the checkpoint on floor 2 and is now going to backtrack, trying to find Candlemas, a bunch of opportunities available for him to see where there. Uses the checkpoint to get further back in floor 1, decides that that's the more efficient pathing, which I actually think is a very smart move there, using the checkpoint to get through. Has Herald of Thunder to help with the mob clear here. You can see his XP bar progressing super fast as he takes big chunks of XP from these densely packed mobs, very aggressively ducks in to grab a belt, finds some modifiers on it that are, all right. We don't really need the lightning resistance. Finds a fur plate. If he has the strength to equip it, that could be a pretty significant defensive upgrade. Armor, strength, cold res. If he can equip it, that's huge defensive upgrade for Lolcohol there. Should feel a lot safer going into the remainder of these fights there. 39 armor, 9 strength, 9 cold res, if my eyes do not deceive me. Some of the strongest possible mods to deal with both the physical and cold damage, as well as to get some additional base HP here. 229 life, 23 ES. Should be a little bit lower survivability there. You can actually see that this is a common theme for our pure Dex players, that they are doing that. Makes the switch to get Chain for the boss, and is making very confident damage against this Candlemas here. And so he should be in a very close position here. Finishes up against Candlemas, gets a Storm Rune. Does he have the opportunity to socket that? He does not have any Artificer's Orbs, but he has Whetstones. Why isn't he putting the Whetstones in? Hello, friends? He has a Whetstone in his inventory. Has a Whetstone in his inventory. What are we doing, friends? Why are we not taking the damage? He's saving the Whetstones for race 3. I understand. Now we see Lolcohol progressing through floor 2. Just needs a little bit careful here. It's level 14, which is really, really important. Should be able to upgrade to higher level skills here. Remember, he has that +1 available. He'd have to go back to town to grab the level 5 skill gem from Latus, the NPC that you free from the Executioner stand. And now he grabs Primal Sundering. Primal Sundering isn't actually a node that's going to give him significant damage much at all in this particular run. Primal Sundering gives increased area of effect for attacks, as well as damage penetration, but dealing primarily lightning and fire damage because of the gear that he has available. You will see that Lolcohol doesn't need to penetrate Geonor's resistances, as Geonor doesn't have any lightning or fire resistance, so that node doesn't do much for him. Also equips the Sapphire Charm, a smart defensive choice, especially given the lower HP of our pure dexterity build here, that we want Lolcohol to be able to survive. Again, the time to beat on Lightning Arrow is 106 flat, so we're just hoping for Lolcohol on slightly better item RNG to be able to compete with the excellent performance from Miso on last run. But we notice he's having some difficulty here getting through the floor, getting caught by mobs, could be killing the mobs, but clearly does not want to do so, and is now going to reset on this floor for the 3rd time, flipping off the camera there, clearly expressing some frustration. If he was just going to lightning arrow his way through, he would have the opportunity to clear these mobs and progress more efficiently, and now he's going to finally make it through on the Wolf Pounce. Another tiny fun fact for you guys here, just while we're talking about getting caught on mobs in the wolf form. The wolf has a larger hitbox, both to get blocked by mobs as well as terrain. And so actually, if he had transitioned to human form, it's very likely that his dodge roll would have gotten through there more efficiently. So now we have an opportunity here. He gets down into Geonor's arena. Fastest possible time here is about a 3-minute 20-second clear. So we could see something like a 104 at the best possible time, but we're really just rooting for him to have a clean fight. Finally applies the whetstone. Oh my gosh, what a bow. 62% IPD, 1-19 lightning. My God. What a bow for our man here. That's incredible. Now we can see his fight against Gianor here. The typical racing strategy, by the way, from our friend Lysera, one of the best lightning arrow, lightning rod competitive racers, elite speedrunners in the world, is to try to kite Gianor into consistent positions and place your lightning rods there. So ordinarily you put your back against the elevator shaft and let Gianor walk to you, stacking lightning rods there, so that way when you stun him, he just curls up against the wall and continues to take damage. Fighting him in the freestanding area right here is not the meta for top racers, but of course Lolcohol is not playing a build that he's particularly comfortable with, so as a consequence, you don't expect these sorts of advanced bossing strategies to be well known by non-competitive runners here. I am noticing a number of streamers in my chat who are talking shit about racers, and I'm just saying, right now I see all three of Talkative Try, Blazeworks, and The Farmer in my chat. I have the stream layout set up, boys. If you want to put on the boxing gloves and get in the ring yourself, I'm free all night. As we see Lolcohol piling up the damage, interrupting the ice spike animation from Gianor in phase 2. He will get a poetry phase, but he's doing exceptional damage. My God. He almost avoided the poetry phase there. You could see the frustration as he went greedily for the next thing there. Trying to avoid the poetry phase by dealing damage before the end of the phase, but should, with this exceptional item RNG, be able to do this. I want to point out he's going to finish in around 103, but he has like one of the best bows I've ever seen. And now we see an end at 102.42. Beautiful race from our boys. We'll give Lolcohol a second to talk to his chat before we unmute. And that was a gorgeous race from all of our racers. So to recap, for race 2, our times were 52.27 by Rabbit, 55.44 by MisoxShiru, and 102.42 by Lolcohol. I'll put those in chat for anyone who wants to see the times there. Well played, beautiful performance from all of our racers, and I will unmute to join the cooldown chat with the boys. All right, we have 5 minutes remaining on the prediction. Racers, are you ready?
Yes.
Yep.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, and we are off to the races. We started the timer on time this time, and all of our racers are making their way through. I'm particularly interested to see if we can pull out a clean sweep from DeadRabb1t, as we see all of our racers making their way through on the third build of the day. DeadRabb1t now on what we think is the weakest of these 3 Act 1 builds, Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod. Lolcohol making his way through on the smoothest playing of the 3 with that Essence Drain Contagion, and MisoxShiru on the best bossing build of the 3 with Grenades. It should be very strong. Remember, guys, you can vote in Twitch chat predictions on all 3 streamers' Twitch chats, but especially mine. Please vote on mine. I am Crimson Casts, and if you guys want to see all 3 perspectives, we can do so pretty efficiently by just watching my stream. All right, DeadRabb1t now able to get onto our boss the first, and we can watch the Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod. Like I said in the last couple of runs, it has a slightly worse ability to deal damage. It's slower but safer Lightning Rod compared to the others. Meanwhile, you can see the Unearth doing huge damage from Lolcohol, as Lolcohol takes a big slam, but is able to survive with some responsive flask usage. Will likely be the first of our players to get into Clearfell. See what his drops are. We Get a wrapped quarterstaff and a rusted cuirass. Nothing particularly interesting there. Take a quick look at the drops. We get some suede bracers, torn gloves. What do we get here? Maximum mana on the boots. 1 to 3 physical damage on the bracers for Dead Rabbit, so some early damage there as well. And we will now follow through to see what drops Miso gets from the miller. Good drop for Dead Rabbit, nothing useful for Lolcohol. And Miso, finishing up on the crossbow, will level up, able to put some points into projectile damage, gets an orb of augmentation, a tattered robe, a hardwood spear, just some junk items. He makes his way into town, and we are back to the balanced view where I can say hello to chat. And now we progress out again into Fate of the Vol SSF Clearfell, which again has only one layout available. Dead Rabbit finds the League mechanic to be able to get an early Orb of Transmutation. We'll go ahead and see what he gets with that Orb of Transmutation. Does he slam it immediately on his bow or on his quiver in order to make some upgrades there? That Transmute, particularly valuable if he holds on to it until he gets his short bow, likely in Red Veil. But if he doesn't hold on to it, then we will need to see what he has available as far as damage before then. Grabs the level 1 gem from the Forgotten Encampment, likely to cut Frostbomb, I imagine. Yes, in fact, he will. And now we see the other players out into the open area. Lolcohol, perhaps recognizing that it's the same layout as last time, we'll see if he struggles again to find the encampment or if his layout reading has progressed from race 2 to race 3. You see Dead Rabbit struggling to deal with a large pack of wolves here, almost getting overrun, needs to dodge roll out, is able to do so. Now we will see Dead Rabbit able to clear the mob efficiently, choosing not to fight Bira and instead to grab the checkpoint here. Will he go back to get Bira? Yes, he will. He just wanted to get the checkpoint in order to perhaps refresh his flask before the boss fight. Lolcohol, however, finishing up Bira very efficiently on the witch and has a ton of damage. Sees a rusted great helm, decides not to pick it up, a bit surprisingly perhaps, because you would like to see some more armor on that player. And now Miso and Dead Rabbit onto this as well. Miso now doing the best that he can to clear out through this area. We want to see the drops for both of these players, so I'm going to quickly focus Dead Rabbit as it looks like he's going to bring down Bira first, gets a tense crossbow and an attuned wand, picks up neither, and now we will go back to looking at Miso, see if Miso can get an upgrade here for his crossbow. It is possible to get the best possible unique for this run as early as Bira. MisoxShiru has the opportunity to get a Rampart Raptor, the unique tense crossbow. So as a consequence, we have a chance here. Gets some yellow straw sandals, chance at movement speed, as well as a number of defensive items. Nope, just gets some mana and energy shield, throws on some evasion, head of the Winter Wolf there, and we can now see our other players already starting to fight their way through. We'll take a look at Lolcohol, who's using Essence Drain Contagion to deal with a huge pack of wolves, and you can see he's very comfortably at level 3 now, already next to Ariadne's hut, and making quick work of these large packs. Sees the checkpoint and is going to walk back around there. Dead Rabbit, on the other hand, going to make some work with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, as he tries to make his way through the rest of the zones. Dead Rabbit now making progress against Ariadne. You'll notice that she likes to walk off of mobs here, and all 3 of our players fighting Ariadne at the same time. So I'll bring you back to the balanced view. Hello, as we can watch all 3 fights progress at the same time. Dead Rabbit dealing with volatiles, MisoxShiru struggling, trying to get all the way through as he uses, interestingly, he uses frost shards trying to freeze the boss. She does have elemental resistance aura. You can see the tricolor ring underneath her feet. She tries to make some progress as she tries to resist the onslaught of his bolts and nades. Miso winging it very much. Very effective there. One thing that he seems to not know. Yes, he in fact does. Beautiful. Okay, so using the frost shards to freeze the witch, very effective, because fragmentation rounds deals massive increased damage to frozen enemies, and so he was able to deal a big chunk there. I was worried he wasn't going to use the programmed skill synergy. Now we see Dead Rabbit progressing through the zone quite quickly. Lolcohol brings down his version of the witch, and is able to grab an orb of augmentation as well as a tattered robe, looking for some energy shield as he progresses, and MisoxShiru making progress as well. DeadRabb1t, using that same backwards walking style we're so familiar to seeing from our lightning arrow racers today, already has 2 of the points of interest, has collected the waypoint, has not yet found the Grim Tangle, but is working his way toward the red veil point of interest. Slowly working his way down, you can see Lolcohol on the top right of your screen connects the Grim Tangle waypoint before continuing to progress. MisoxShiru doing the same on the bottom left side of your screen. DeadRabb1t is our first player to enter Red Veil and therefore earns the focus. He's on a map called Bump, and it's because there's a bump on one side of the wall which you can use to find your way. He now double checks up against the wall, perhaps knowing the Red Veil layout actually, because you can see that he checked the wall that you can check to disambiguate between Bump and Hook, and he eventually decides to turn and continue here. MisoxShiru using these frost shards, which I really like to see. Beautiful stuff here between the 3 racers. I want to thank you guys for all of the follows. It makes a big difference. Huge support for the series. I'm glad that you guys enjoy the racing and the casting. It's also easier for you guys to keep track of, I hope, with the fewer racers. And then also more relatable to see builds that you might consider as practical league starters on various things. Pretty common to league start on Lightning Arrow, pretty common to league start on Essence Drain Contagion or on grenades. So instead of these hyper optimized weird cross-class speed racing builds, nice to see some more traditional league starters there. Holy shit, thank you for the 10 gifted hockey. That's great, man. That's so nice. And thank you for the sub. They call me Talks. You guys are, I really appreciate the support. Yeah, wow. That's very kind. Now we see DeadRabb1t making his way through, clicking on these refined arms, looking for that higher level bow, finds a smithing hammer instead. And so he's going to be looking for that short bow. Refined arms next to him as well. Sees those padded leggings. And I'm now going to go back to the balanced scene as all 3 of our players are in the red veil at the same time. DeadRabb1t no longer the sole owner of the focus. DeadRabb1t finishes up that league mechanic, clicks on the refined arms, does not get anything. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you, Talks, for the 10 gifted. My God, we're on a huge hype train. Thank you so much, boys. I'm going to try and lock in on the casting, but I am appreciated for all the gifts. That's very kind. Yeah, so DeadRabb1t progressing toward his next area here. You can see Lolcohol kiting together larger mobs with the Essence Drain Contagion. MisoxShiru using the combination of these bolt builds to use AoE clear that's pretty convincing on this early zone. Finds an uncut skill gem level 2. Whether he chooses to upgrade his grenades or his bolt skills, I'll be excited to see. It looks like he's pretty comfortable with the clear offered by this bolt combination early on. Thank you for the bits as well, everyone. We're on a huge hype train now. It's pretty distracting as I try to commentate. And now Lolcohol onto what I believe is his first obelisk. He's in a very unusual position. It's actually kind of funny. I think all 3 racers got the same base layout variant for this zone. So you can see just how different their approaches are. They're all in a layout that I would call Bump. Lolcohol now hitting level 5, progressing onto his layout here onto his rest obelisk, and DeadRabb1t now making his way through with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, working toward that second obelisk. For DeadRabb1t, there's going to be one off the bottom left side of the screen, and MisoxShiru now going to be able to make progress. Now trying to make progress through the remainder of the zone here, clearing out this obelisk. Dropping very low is DeadRabb1t on the top left of your screen. You can see Lolcohol searching around for these rest obelisks. Unfortunately, not making the correct choice here. The 2 places where he would see those obelisks are actually on the other side of this wall that he's walking against, and so he's going to need to bear back toward the center of the zone in order to find these next rust obelisks. Now, DeadRabb1t making his way through this next zone should be able to get his next point here, collects that ruined guard. Now you can see Lolcohol working his way through here as well. And MisoxShiru with a checkpoint reset, trying to stay alive against this zone reset, checkpoint reset, back, and I think he'll be the first of our players to find his third Rust Obelisk, so we'll give him the focus for the moment, as he is the first to approach the Rust King. Thank you so much for the hype green and all the follows, guys. This is a huge deal. This is by far my best performing stream in history, by the way. I've never had anything close to this amount of viewership. This is a huge deal for me. I appreciate all the support. MisoxShiru, about 1/3 of the way through Rust King as DeadRabb1t starts his own fight, piling up those lightning arrow lightning rods underneath the feet of that Rust King there. And then we can see Lolcohol starting as well. So we're going to go back to the balanced scene as we see all three players fighting the Rust King at the same time. Very, very close between DeadRabb1t and MisoxShiru. Lolcohol about 40% of the way through this fight behind, so about a 1 minute difference between our fastest and slowest runners so far, but making good pace, on pace for a sub 15 Grimtangle entry, and DeadRabb1t is the first of our three players to bring down the Rust King boss. Finds a robe here as well as some mitts, has the opportunity to grab a couple of items, grabs a blue short bow. I'm going to focus him briefly so we can catch these modifiers here. Split physical accuracy as well as dexterity, not what you would have hoped for. And now we can see our other two racers trying to finish up the Rust King here as well. And this should be a huge deal. We can see whether or not Lolcohol on the Essence Strain Contagion, letting that Contagion jump from the mob to the Rust King will be a big deal here, as well as stacking these Withered stacks with the Withered Wand, being very disciplined about the use of his mana flasks. Ooh, and he gets brought down by the Iron Volley. No! Unbelievable. F's in the chat. 07s, boys. I can't believe it. Lolcohol struggling again with a boss fight on main range here. And we see a shopping trip from MisoxShiru. 4 to 6 fire damage. You would be able to afford that, big dog. You would no. You would be able to afford the expensive one. I promise. This is not cheating. I know exactly what you would actually have in this circumstance. You're totally fine. You can buy this. You would have that amount of gold. You would have that amount of gold. You can buy it. No, buy the other one. Buy the other one. No. So MisoxShiru buying a crossbow that has 2 to 7 fire damage, but is on the level 1 base, and he could have instead bought one that had a slightly lower amount of fire damage, but was on the higher level base, and he would have had slightly better damage. This is one of those things where just recognizing the bases as you're more and less familiar with the class is something that you get used to. This is why we do League Start practice. Thank you for the hype train. I got the little trickster emote. Share your choo-choo train emotes in chat as we see DeadRabb1t working his way through. We're going to give Lolcohol the center of the screen here for a second as he finishes up his Rust King, trying to make his way through this fight, as we hope that he can dodge that Iron Volley next time. 1/3 of the way through this fight with the Rust King should be hugely popular to see Lolcohol succeed the second time. Slightly weaker bossing damage. You'll notice that the entangle strategy employed by Miso in race 2 was the best of the early Essence Drain that we've seen so far. Didn't get the item RNG that propelled DeadRabb1t to such that exceptional 47-minute time, but certainly a very clean example of what you can do with just slight tweaks to your ultra low level strategy. Just while you're in the Rust King fight, just cut that extra level 1 skill gem to get that entangle damage off. And Lolcohol finally succeeds. A round of applause in the chat. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, don't sell it, equip it. Don't sell it, equip it. Don't sell it, equip it. Equip it, equip it, equip it. You think it's for attacks. It's not. It's for spells. Equip it. Thank the Lord. Holy shit. Okay, for anyone who doesn't know in chat, that ring, Blackheart, is one of the most classic twink uniques in Path of Exile 2. What it is it's an iron ring, 1 to 4 physical damage, that can also give up to 6 to 10 chaos damage. However, it also intimidates enemies on hit, which means that if you're using spells which hit, you can still intimidate. That causes the enemy to take 10% more damage and deal 20% less damage. So it makes it easier to survive because the boss's damage is neutered, and it also amplifies all other sources of damage. So although he's using spells, which won't benefit from the 1 to 4 physical damage to attacks and the 6 to 10 chaos damage to attacks, he'll still benefit from that all-important Intimidate, which is a beautifully important modifier here. We're going to give the screen to Miso as I'm done glazing the existence of this Blackheart drop, which which should be a transformative drop, by the way. That's an unbelievably potent item. If it had fallen to either one of our martial weapons, oh my gosh, Miso dodging the fungal volley. Miso using this bolt build that I really like, actually. I'm pretty convinced that this is good. And then you can see he switched to fragmentation rounds and the big chunk of damage comes out there. Still using that low level crossbow though. Buying that lower level base, pretty frustrating. And then you can see DeadRabb1t is the first of our 3 players to enter the cemetery, and we'll switch to the balanced point of view as soon as Miso finishes this boss fight. We can now let Miso finish this up. And a tense crossbow, we're going to wait for him to ID it. Potential upgrade here. 2 to all projectiles. Augment. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! What an item RNG there. For anyone who doesn't know, this is, break out your note-taking apps right now. The Rotten Druid is the first level 6 unique enemy that you fight, which means that he can drop up to item level 8 items. That item rolled +2 proj, but was also item level 8 and rolled 8 to 10 physical damage, which is an item level 8 modifier. That is the earliest possible time he could have gotten that upgrade. This is a huge deal. We've now seen 2 different completely crazy drops. Miso has the best possible crossbow prefix and the best possible crossbow suffix at the same time early on. If it's me in this run, the second I get the regal from the... from the League Mechanic and Cemetery, I'm slamming this crossbow. This crossbow could be his endgame crossbow. That's a huge deal. What a phenomenal set of drops. This is crazy. DeadRabb1t making progress through the zone here. And you can see Lolcohol. If you prefer a boss fight, you can look at the top right side of your screen, but I'm trying to give you guys the balanced view as we have runners in very different positions at the moment. Lolcohol making his way through. You can see the Intimidate snack. If you're watching Lolcohol's point of view, it's obscured a little bit by the nameplate that I have, but there's sort of an orangey red icon that shows up underneath the boss HP there, and that is the Intimidation on hit, which is coming out from these withered stacks from the Withered Wand. That's a very important modifier there. DeadRabb1t making his way through the League Mechanic to get that all-important Regal. Hopefully he can save it for his Warden bow, and will make good progress through the end of the act on that basis. DeadRabb1t trying to kite this mob needs to play a little bit carefully. You can see Miso with this beautiful crossbow is going to be able to do a whole lot. If he gets to level 6, he'll be able to upgrade to this much stronger crossbow, and he'll start one-shotting mobs. It'll be crazy. Lolcohol with a protracted fight needs to be careful with his flask management, running low on flasks, so we will give him the 4. You can see he has no life flask, down to 14 HP. Will he be able to do the second half of that? Oh, and he drops down to 1 HP! Please, please, please! Is he going to reset at checkpoint? Oh, what a gamer. What a gamer. What a gamer. Oh, the correct decision, by the way. There's no way you're making through that fight with 40% of the boss's HP remaining, unless you're playing ridiculously carefully. That's the correct decision there. Correct, good decision there. And we will now focus DeadRabb1t, who is the first of our players to enter one of the tombs on this Lightning Arrow Lightning Rod. You can see he's now level 7 in the corner of his screen. He gets a Jade Amulet that's particularly useful for him. He's going to meet the Dex requirement of his higher level bows and skills, and that was crazy. And so now we should be able to go through. Can someone clip either my stream or Miso's stream and show me what he got on the Regal for that crossbow, please? That's absolutely nuts RNG here. We can see that he needs to be particularly careful. Remember, this Eternal Night monster type that shows up in the cemetery areas here has projectile reflection as an innate feature, but only when they raise their shield. So as a consequence, you can see that he has to remain super close to the enemy to convince him to lower his shield and swing his attack and then dodge roll out. DeadRabb1t demonstrating the tech very efficiently there. So that's particularly good combat EV here. You can see very careful execution from all 3 of our players here. So very beautiful execution here as we see DeadRabb1t struggling with that projectile reflection on the top left of the screen, and now should be able to get all the way through the zone. You can see DeadRabb1t trying to find the League Mechanic. We're hoping to see any one of the stat-based amulets, by the way. On your League start, when you fight whatever the league mechanic is in Tomb of the Consort, you're hoping to see any of the stat amulets. The Jade Amulet for Dex, the Amber Amulet for Strength, the Lapis Amulet for Int. That being because as you're leveling up and you, oh my gosh, Dead Rabbit. Oh, what a gamer. And a free support gem for the clutch. What a gamer. As he dodges through those bone tornadoes and finds yet another Jade Amulet. Like I was saying, the stat amulets, even if it doesn't match the stat that you want, you're a mercenary, you want strength dex, you get the int one, that's still good, because your equip requirements, your support gem requirements are going to vary a lot, and just having any amount of base stats means that fixing your support requirements is much easier with just any amount of stats on gear early on, so the stat amulets are a particularly valuable drop for you to get. So that's good tech for you guys to know. Just an early, cheeky stat amulet can be particularly useful. We're now waiting for all 3 of our players to enter into the cemetery area boss fights. Lolcohol struggling a little bit here to find the Tomb of the Consort. Looks like he has an opportunity to find it as he's progressing through the corner of the zone here. And MisoxShiru will get the focus as we see him fight the rare monster and look for his support gem. Looks like his support gem will probably be Elemental Armament for his grenades, but we will have to see what he chooses to do with it. Again, if anyone is able to show me what the second modifier was on Miso's crossbow, if you happen to grab a snippet of it, feel free to put that in chat and let me know as he finds his way into the boss arena. Will he defeat the league mechanic to get the amulet? No, he will not. Instead, making confident progress on the rest of this, loading up those stronger, and you see here, upgrades his elemental, upgrades his explosive grenades, and now makes some more progress. We now are making our way through this. He has a ton, whatever this is, he has a ton of damage. Whatever that mod he got is crazy. Now I'm going to show you guys to DeadRabb1t stream just after we finish a very clean boss fight, level 7 for Miso. We'll see what drops he gets. He gets an Exalt. He gets a unique Sapphire Charm. That's Breath of the Wind, which isn't useful for him at all. Generates power charges on being frozen. And DeadRabb1t now needs to go and find the boss arena in the center of this void that he has not explored, and will make it all the way through. One thing I want to point out, by the way, I'm very curious about this chat. You'll notice DeadRabb1t has a pink cursor, Miso has a green cursor, and Lolcohol has the traditional white cursor. Do you guys have a preference among the cursor color? I'm a pink cursor believer because it has a big contrast against the traditional grays, browns, greens, and blues that I see on screen, so it's more visible for me. But I'm curious what you guys enjoy as your cursor color. White, pink, pink, white. A lot of people are saying pink. I think pink, just because it contrasts those grays, greens, browns, and blues, is something that I particularly enjoy. We're going to go ahead and give Lolcohol the focus just for a quick second, even though DeadRabb1t's in a boss fight, because we want to see what he does with this support gem. Contagion goes to Essence Drain and gets Swift Affliction. He gets Swift Affliction. Now we go to DeadRabb1t, who's finishing up his Assinia fight, and we can see what drops DeadRabb1t gets here. Not quite possible for him to get the Warden Bow, I don't believe, but he should be in a comfortable position to get a couple of other options. Gets a Yellow Nettle Talisman, which has some opportunity to be useful for him here, as well as a skill gem that he uses. Now we're going to go ahead and check on our boy Miso, who's in the middle of a Draven fight with an exceptionally strong crossbow. This is a nuts crossbow. I can't believe this. This is an insane piece of equipment that he has here, and a Regal Orb as well, some yellow straw sandals, and a sturdy crossbow on the ground that he doesn't even pick up. Dude, the aura of Miso clutching Raise 3 like this is going to be studied. Someone in chat, please let me know what the mods are on. We have links to Miso's God Expos. Sugar Biscuit, if you can just post like a double fizz and +2. Double fizz. Thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Take a look at this here quickly because I want to see what the modifier was. So he has 51% increased physical damage. Okay, so not a great roll, but a very good modifier. It synergizes with what he already had. And a 26-25. Sheesh. Unbelievable grab there for Miso. So Miso's cooking on some good item RNG, and I like this bolt synergy. Not the traditional choice. We're going to give Lolcohol the focus, although Miso remains in the lead. Very, very strong crossbow here. Unbelievably strong crossbow to get this early. Double fizz and +2. He's also going to get an exalt, by the way, for that crossbow. If you find the league mechanic in... if you find the league mechanic in hunting grounds, it gives an exalt. So we have a chance to see Miso get yet another modifier on this right now. And Lolcohol enters into this zone. We can see a Draven fight from DeadRabb1t in focus, Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, keeping pace with this absolutely god-tier crossbow. What a beautiful thing. Thank you to chat for grabbing that link for me. I apologize. You can see DeadRabb1t making slower but more steady progress through this area here as Miso finds Fraythorn in the bottom left of your screen. You can see Lolcohol keeping pace as well on the Essence Drain Contagion through this zone. Lolcohol making good use of these lightning rods against, excuse me, not Lolcohol, DeadRabb1t making good use of these lightning arrow, lightning rod combinations. Hits level 8, is able to equip it, one of his amulets, should he like to do so. Gets a guarded helm, which is a level 11 base hybrid evasion armor helm, so that'll be a good piece of survivability for him. And we're going to go back to the balanced scene for a moment as I say hello to chat and hope that chat waves back at me. We have a bunch of players who are between boss fights at the moment. And so I want to say hello and give you guys an equal chance to view multiple boss fights at the same time as we see Lolcohol entering against Draven and DeadRabb1t entering against Lachlan at the same time. MisoxShiru making quick work through Fraythorn, having not fought the Crowbell yet though, so fewer skill points assigned than otherwise would, so has slightly lower damage than he would have in the reverse situation. That said, with such a strong crossbow, he should be totally fine. DeadRabb1t making clean work against Lachlan. Unfortunately, because of the frozen ground, he had to walk in a position where you can see that Lachlan does not like to stay still on top of these lightning arrow, lightning rods. You can see Lolcohol doing slower, methodical damage against this Draven and should be in a comfortable position for the rest of this fight here. Should be able to back off here. His minions getting a little bit in the way, but again, not a particularly dangerous fight. We're all familiar with the mechanics. Oh my god, what is Lolcohol doing? Lolcohol's baiting for content. I don't know what else to say about it. He walked into the slam just to flask it off. What a gamer. This is our boy for you as DeadRabb1t brings down Lachlan, and we look at his drops to see if he gets anything interesting. A Pelage Targe, and nothing else of interest for DeadRabb1t. MisoxShiru going to get the focus as soon as Lolcohol brings down this, and we see an antler focus. Actually, we're going to give Lolcohol the focus for a second as we wait for him to ID this focus. It can't have plus spell levels yet, but it can have other modifiers that we care about. So we want to see him ID this focus. We're looking to see the mods on this focus for Lolcohol, who's going to go back to town and shop for things. He's looking for upgrades here. Mana per enemy killed. Cast speed gain is extra cold. Decides that that's what he wants. Cast speed gain is extra cold. And he's going to go ahead and keep that other wand with +1 all physical spells here. And then we can take a look at DeadRabb1t. DeadRabb1t finishing up this league mechanic, going to have an exalt come out of it. And now we can see the rest of this here. Don't you dare sneak this ID away from me, sir. What did you get on that antler focus, Mr. Lolcohol? I want to know what these items are. He's checking his Essence Drain. And now we're going to see a King of the Mist fight from Miso in a second here. Next bow base at level 11, the Warden bow, if the name hasn't escaped me. You can see this gain is extra cold, doing a little bit of chill to the boss, not enough to make a significant difference in the boss's action speed. And so now Lolcohol should be progressing smoothly as Miso dies! No! We just missed it. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep track of 3 different racers and talk at 200 words per minute the entire time. I'm sorry, boys. F's in the chat from Miso. Can I get some F's here? So as a consequence, we will need to keep a close eye on Miso for the moment. Also, Lolcohol, the Essence Ring Contagion takes a big slam from Lachlan there, survives it with the Flasco, still hasn't ID'd. ID your goddamn focus, Lolcohol. ID your focus. ID the focus in your inventory. Chat wants to know. Chat, can you tell him to say to ID his focus, please? Tell him to ID his focus. Tell him to we need ID the focus. And now we're going to give Rabbit the focus for a second as he's finishing up against Crowbell. Miso working on these rituals, not yet on the King in the Mists. So it's a closer race than you guys may think, because DeadRabb1t getting punched and pummeled, absolutely pounded powerfully by the Crowbell. I can't believe the potency of those powerful punches. It's DeadRabb1t barely able to survive. 165 HP is a little bit higher than typical here, but not by much. It's maybe 15 or 20 HP more than is normal at this point in the run. So pretty lucky from him to be able to dodge roll exactly at the timing that he did and avoid that last one, be able to flask off the others. Now we see DeadRabb1t finishing the rest of this here. We get a couple of key items there. A Warden Bow on the ground. A Warden Bow on the ground. ID it. He doesn't have an ID scroll. Tragic. And now we're going to give Miso the focus, as he is on King in the Mists with his very strong crossbow. Not even playing nades. I like it. He's not even playing nades. Screw nades. You're right. He's going to play bolts the entire way through. All the way through phase 1 already before we could even focus him up. And so we now have a second phase coming out. Avoids the curse, trying to avoid the big purple orb. Go ahead and type purple orb in chat if you're a fan of this. Purple orb attack. MisoxShiru with the huge fractions of damage from this combination of the frost bolts, freezing the boss and then shattering him with fragmentation rounds. Beautiful, clean execution there. Drops a unique bone wand. That's a Sanguine Diviner, right? Am I not mistaken? That's his second unique of the run, neither one useful to his build in any way. And now he will be able to get all the way back out of this zone. And he's going to teleport back out. We're going to take a look at DeadRabb1t, as DeadRabb1t is doing a shopping trip here. You can take a look at the rest of this. Sells all of it. IDs. An item gets percentage increased armor, buys a bunch of ID scrolls, and continues on all the way through. We're going to go back to the balanced scene, and I'm going to wave at chat hello. As Lolcohol enters into a boss fight, just as we continue to go all the way through here. And we can see Lolcohol with +1 to level of all spell skills. This is why we wanted you to ID the focus, Lolcohol. You have +1 to level of all spell skills on the focus. Yeah, you can't equip it yet, but now we know that Lolcohol is going to have very strong gap closing damage, and we expect Miso to continue running away from the rest of this. But now it's a very interesting race between Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t, because Lightning Arrow struggles, and we're about to see Lolcohol's build come online. The second he hits the equip requirement level for this focus, which I believe should be level 10, he should be completely fine. Especially because he has +1 to level of all spell skills, as well as that Black Heart Ring. So he's got great RNG at the moment to close the gap against DeadRabb1t. I enjoy the on-screen effects of my fellow streamers going off during the race as people try to distract them with gift subs and bits and so forth. Chat, can you do me a favor? We're going to try and distract Miso. Can you just do me a favor? Go over to Miso's chat and type the name of your favorite dog breed and see if we can distract him. Just flood his chat with dog breeds. Tell him you like corgis. Tell him you like a cocker spaniel. Tell him you like a retriever. Just go over there and we're going to see if we can make the race closer by just typing, just flood the man's chat with dog breeds. We're trying to keep a close race. Don't let Miso run away with it. As Lolcohol enters into Ogham Farmlands and DeadRabb1t makes his way through Freythorn, we're going to give the focus to Miso, enduring the onslaught of dog breeds in his chat as we try and distract him, grabs an Artificer's Orb, and it should be socketing a Storm Rune, I imagine, into this crossbow, or perhaps a Glacial Rune, given that he's playing bolts so far. Should be just fine as he continues to make all the way through there. Miso missed the Crowbell. Miso missed the Crowbell. Let me tag him in the chat because I can add him. I added him on Discord. We'll see if he doubles back for Crowbell. I did add him on Discord. Yeah, okay. He saw my ping. He literally just said Crowbell, right? He'll be okay if he just clicks the yeah, he'll be fine. He can just waypoint back. Yeah, he's a little bit overwhelmed. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Hunting grounds, perfect. Yeah, he's totally fine now. He's totally fine. All right, cool. We're going to not watch Miso's fight. We're going to go back to the balanced scene so you guys can get a little bit more view here as Lolcohol makes his way through to Ogham Village. If I'm not mistaken, Lolcohol hasn't made his way through Freythorn yet and is now going to checkpoint back, I imagine. Yes, indeed. All the way back to make his way through Freythorn. So it's hard to tell between Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t what the positioning is, because Lolcohol has cleared all the way through to Ogham Village, and then DeadRabb1t instead has gone for the more direct route, making his way through Freythorn first. To answer a question in Twitch chat, how are they managing gold in this? We have a gentleman's agreement. Ordinarily in SSF runs, if you can just migrate all of your gold from SSF to trade, and then you have no gold, no items, and an empty stash on SSF. But Miso, ever the content creator, is working on an SSF project character, and so we have a gentleman's agreement to just be reasonable about how you spend gold, as it's just an informal content race. And so Miso is just buying things he thinks he would have been able to afford, and I haven't seen him make an unsporting decision yet. The other two players did migrate, though, and so we can be assured that Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t are algorithmically forced into making sporting decisions, and Miso has been very gentlemanly in the way that he's handled this so far, and everyone understands that, like, content creation plans work that way, and so we don't want him to interrupt his SSF character creation. So... Now our two racers making the way through. Crowbell cleared for MisoxShiru, and we can continue to admire Miso's grenade and bolt dominance, putting on attrition. Now stepping into the Executioner fight, one thing that you should be very aware of is that Miso has no helm, no gloves, and his chest piece is evasion, not armor. In addition to that, he only has 178. Oh, DeadRabb1t got owned. Holy shit, DeadRabb1t's tilting. You could see the frustration in his face. I'm very sorry for DeadRabb1t. But to continue explaining the Executioner fight, Miso has 178 total HP. The low roll of the main slams that the Executioner can do is 360 physical damage. So if he face tanks any one of these slams, he's dead from full, no matter what, because he's on the low end of survivability here. A rare antler focus for Miso. He won't be able to equip it, though. We're going to go back to the balanced scene as he makes his way through. Hopefully he heeds my advice and goes back to town to upgrade his flasks before we see anything else, but we'll have to see. Again, on the low end of survivability, really needs a helm, really needs some gloves, hopefully an armor-based chest piece to keep him a bit more survivable. So we're hoping to see a defensive shopping trip from Miso now. DeadRabb1t making his way through Freythorn should be able to find the King in the Mists. A very close race between Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t now. DeadRabb1t on the Lightning Arrow trying to find the King in the Mists boss arena. You know, type Freythorn in chat if you're hoping that this godforsaken zone gets reworked in 0.5. Go ahead and type Freythorn in chat. We will be doing the final score summary at the end of this race, so don't you guys worry. You will find out who the overall victor is. But just to give you some idea, DeadRabb1t probably, despite finishing in third in this particular iteration, based on his previous times, it would be hard to imagine him not winning overall. But we will see when the final score table comes in. And now DeadRabb1t going into his King of the Mists fight. Lolcohol on a similar trajectory, but we're going to give Rabbit the focus for the moment. Keep a close eye on Miso's progress, though. Mana Ramparts, especially with this lower flask. He did upgrade his flasks. He's still 178 HP, though, which is a bit more of a... That's on the lower end. You'd expect to see a crossbow player closer to 200 or 220 at this point. So he's missing maybe 20 to 25% of the HP that you would expect at this point. DeadRabb1t making clean work through these mobs. Should be in a safe position, though. I want to thank all of you guys for all of the follows as well. This is a huge deal for me. This is by far the best viewership I've ever had on stream. As well as all the gift subs once again. Thank you so much. DeadRabb1t progressing through phase 1 quite clearly, having better luck than the previous 2 times we saw this fight done on Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod. We will now go back to the balanced scene as we see DeadRabb1t and Lolcohol fighting the King of the Mists at the same time, progressing to phase 2 at the same time. Go ahead and type 1 in chat if you expect Rabbit to finish first. Type 2 in chat if you expect Lolcohol to finish first, starting phase 2 within 1 or 2 seconds of each other. By the way, for finish first, I mean this particular fight, since they're starting the fight at the same time. MisoxShiru making his way through Mana Ramparts. We see a very neck-and-neck race. Lolcohol dealing big damage, consistent damage, but unfortunately DeadRabb1t dealing big bursts of Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, as we're able to see. And they're going to finish at almost exactly the same time. And this is insane. DeadRabb1t's like 2 seconds ahead, like 1 second ahead. They're going to kill him on like the same game tech. Lolcohol wins! Lolcohol wins! Lolcohol believers rejoice! Lolcohol believers rejoice! I can't believe it. What a beautiful execution from our players here. We're now going to give the focus back to Miso, who is entering Ogham Manor. Both of our players finishing up there. This does mean that Lolcohol has a slight lead over DeadRabb1t. You can know that because he's already made his way all the way to Ogham Village, whereas DeadRabb1t will be progressing through Ogham Farmland. So you're going to see a very slight, about 40-second lead for Lolcohol, 40 seconds to a minute and a half or so. And so we'll see if DeadRabb1t can chase him down, or if that will continue to grow as Essence Drain Contagion, especially bolstered by this +1 to levels focus, helps him out there. But Miso, with the strong crossbow and the strong bolt-based gameplay, now going to fight against Candlemass. And now he upgrades some dex nodes, some stat nodes, invests in the rest of this, confirms those stat choices, and now is going to invest in attack speed. Interesting. So he's just going for a pretty balanced approach, has some cooldown reduction, has some area of effect, has some damage, a smorgasbord, if you will, of options for Miso. And now he freezes the boss, going to go ahead and throw out some grenades, and then hopefully fragmentation rounds the boss before he breaks there, which he does. Has a full level 10 flask, and it is Miso's race to lose at this point. 44 minutes and 46 seconds in, though, it's pretty unlikely that he will take the overall crown for the fastest Act 1 of the night. That's likely to remain with DeadRabb1t's 4740. That said, 148 with no helm and no armor is exceptionally low survivability, so you can be typing your alk ready to LFGs in chat, because Miso has a very risky Geonor fight ahead of him. That said, he does have Candlemass's essence and can consume it to get to 198. We see our other 2 players progressing through. DeadRabb1t working his way through Ogham Farmlands, Lolcohol working his way through Ogham Village, and Miso working his way through the 2nd floor of Ogham Manor. Should be able to find the exit just above him on this layout map here, and we're hoping to see a sub 50 from Miso. Now, one thing I would want to say is, so far tonight, the most impressive defensive combat that we've seen from any of our racers was in race 1 of the evening from Miso, who did an exceptional job managing low flasks. So we should be pretty confident that if anyone is able to handle having this low defensive setup, it should be Miso, because we saw him on a much worse build and with a much worse weapon, able to handle similar situations earlier in the night. So Miso, definitely a combat conqueror and king for the Crimson Casts casual race series, and we can hopefully see Miso flex those muscles yet again. And now Miso progressing down into Geonor at 46-47. It's going to be on the absolute scrapes of whether or not he can finish an 8-11 cold. Oh my goodness. What an insane crossbow. Does he have runes in it? He doesn't have runes in it, right? So we're expecting to see... It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be on the absolute scrapes, skin of his teeth for him to get a sub 50, but it is possible. Throws out those early grenades. Cold damage is actually the worst of the flat damage slams that he could have gotten, because Geonor is cold resistant and he has no penetration available. Does he get the fragmentation rounds out? He does. He should be able to get a clean through phase 1. Throwing out these grenades, positioning super well, and that's phase 1 for MisoxShiru. Go ahead and type phase 1 in chat to celebrate Misu's dominance over phase 1. Miso hoping for that sub 50. Has a chance here, waiting through the dialogue as Lolcohol progresses through Manor Ramparts. It's a possibility that we see all 3 racers make it in under an hour. So the Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod run is about as difficult of a run as we can get. Miso, no! Miso, no! 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 I can't believe it, my friends. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. F. 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 Like I said, a defensive shopping trip, please. No! I can't believe it. I'm so sorry, friends. I didn't mean to caster curse him. I'm just trying to provide insight that this is an unusually low amount of survivability here. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. Lolcohol entering Ogham Manor. DeadRabb1t fighting against Lachlan. We can see huge damage coming out from Miso once again. We get the way through phase 1. Everyone go ahead and type encouraging messages for this. All right, so he entered phase 2 again. Let's go ahead and type "Let's go Miso" into the chat, just to make sure that we say encouraging things after that frustrating death. We're hoping to see a clean fight for him. Hopefully he can still make about a 51 or a 52. And that'll be a very, very good time for Miso on the night. Lolcohol making his way through to Candlemas now. And we have a good opportunity for Miso. In fact, the overall race between Lolcohol and MisoxShiru is really close, in fact. So this is a good opportunity for Miso to finish in second place on the night. Looks like first place on the night is likely out of reach, but there is a chance there. And then we see the sale of a quiver by DeadRabb1t on the bottom of your screen. And now we see Miso progressing through the poetry phase. Oh my gosh. Miso, please, please. Guys, do I need to make a YouTube short about how to do this fight in the poetry phase? Do I need to make guys, I'm not even kidding. Should I make a YouTube short about how to not have this happen to you? Holy shit. My God. You can position differently and it never happens. I can just make a YouTube short. This is so easy to avoid. Please, please. It takes literally no skill if you just know where to stand. Avoid the freezing gale, please. Oh my God, Miso, Miso, my heart, my heart, my heart. Please, Miso, please, Miso, please, Miso, please, Miso, please, 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 Miso, please. Just finish the fight. Just finish the fight. Just finish the fight. Just finish the fight. Thank God. 50-49. 50-49. 50-49. Miso. MisoxShiru. W's in the chat. GG's in the chat, boys. Holy. Unbelievable. GG's. GG's. Lowercase GG's is an emote in my chat, by the way. We're going to go ahead and go back to the balanced scene, congratulating Miso on a race well run, a beautiful time overall. And other than one death, frankly, flawless. Great leverage of really good crossbow RNG there. That was one of the better decisions that you can see, flexing the game knowledge, knowing that he had a cracked weapon, recognizing the value of those higher roll modifiers and adjusting his strategy to it. That's one of the better things that you can see from a high knowledge player. Miso, obviously an expert on Path of Exile 2 and knowing what to do in that circumstance, paying off, getting a really commendable time for his Act 1 run. And now we're rooting for our other two boys to finish up their runs cleanly as well. DeadRabb1t has a lesser essence of sorcery ahead of him, but it won't be nearly as effective for his build, of course, where he's bound to play Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, and he continues to progress toward Ogham Manor. Lolcohol making his way down to floor 3. We're going to give Lolcohol the focus just for the minute as we're anticipating a Geonor fight in a second here. So we should see, hopefully, an Essence Drain Contagion fight here. He does have that Bone Wand with cast speed, as well as gain his cold, and then some spell damage and +1 to the level of all spells on the focus. Arctic Armor equipped means he's a little bit more survivable. Hits level 14. Should be in a position where if he wants to, he can go Bone Storm. We might just see another Essence Drain Contagion opportunity here as DeadRabb1t gets down to Ogham Manor himself. So about a 2.5 to 4 minute lead for Lolcohol over DeadRabb1t at the moment. And then MisoxShiru with the phenomenal run, bolstered by really great RNG. And you can see Lolcohol not going for Bone Storm here, and Lolcohol instead choosing to just continue all the way through on that Essence Drain Contagion. We're hoping for Lolcohol to get a sub 56 at this point. Oh, he's taking a round trip home. Does he need new flasks? No, he doesn't need new flasks. What are we shopping for? Oh, does he just want the level 5 skill gem? What are we shopping for? What are we... Oh, he doesn't have Una's loot. He doesn't have Una's loot. This is actually, that makes it a crazy close race between Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t now. Because now, if he needs to double back for the loot, if he knows where it is, and I think that Lolcohol does know where it is, then we're going to have, like, within, like, a minute, like, it's going to be very close between Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t. Go ahead and type the name of which one you expect to win the Geonor race overall in chat. Like, put your guesses down now, because DeadRabb1t is going to have time to make it up here. So just go ahead and put the name either Lolcohol or DeadRabb1t of who you expect to win. Chat's pretty divided between the Lolcohol and DeadRabb1t votes. This is excellent. This is a very, very good race. Clean performance from Miso. Now we've got Una's loot redeemed. And we can see the Ogham Manor teleport still available. And now Lolcohol onto the fight first. If Lolcohol dies here, though, we can expect to see a very close catch-up from DeadRabb1t. DeadRabb1t just about a floor and a half behind. He's on the end of floor 1 right now. Staircase just over to his left. And he should be able to continue on from there. So if Lolcohol dies, especially if he dies in phase 2, it's going to be really, really close between the two runners. Lolcohol flexing that map knowledge. Lolcohol, of course, the owner of the Campaign Codex Discord. For anyone who's unaware, if you've been using that resource to learn layouts or improve your campaign times, Lolcohol is one of 2 people who originally put that Discord together. And so we own a great community debt to his idea to start that. Though, to put it in his words, it's grown well beyond his contributions at this point. 249 HP, 96 ES for Lolcohol. We'll give him the focus just for the minute, just to get a little bit more insight on this Geonor fight. Now, Lolcohol could be bringing him down. If he gets he's going to get 1 poetry, almost certainly. If he avoids the second one, he has a chance at like a 57-30. So we're hoping just again for that sub-hour time for all of our boys tonight. It's going to be really hard for Rabbit. I think it's pretty unlikely, but Lolcohol has a good shot here at the sub-hour for sure. Oh, the immediate, yeah, no, never mind. This is terrible. He got super early poetry phase. So we'll see if Lolcohol does it correctly. Okay, in this fight, Twitch chat, take notes, okay? Because I'm going to make a YouTube short later, but you may as well know now. In this fight, when this happens, where Gianor goes to the outside and he starts singing his little poem, don't stand in the middle of the arena. What I want you to do is put one shoulder of yours into the fog and the other shoulder of yours into the open area. So I want you to think of like a ring in the arena, and I want you to just walk around in a circle. Keep moving. Don't stop moving. Walk in a circle around the edge of where the fog meets the open air. Lolcohol with clean dodge rolls as we get out of poetry phase and into the second half of the fight here. Lolcohol able to dodge roll out of that blood slam. Now we're going to hope to see a second poetry avoidance by Lolcohol. Hopefully he has a chance to not see second poetry, and we see Requiem and Desolation for the blood beams here. So he should be able to avoid that second poetry. And for Lolcohol, that is time 57:22 from Lolcohol. 57:22 Lolcohol. What a beautiful time that is. Gorgeous there. And now we're going to go ahead and give the focus to DeadRabb1t as he enters for his Gianor fight. It is possible, but extremely unlikely for him to get the sub 1 hour time here. So we're hoping ever so desperately for him to have a clear fight
they're
there.
all deafened.
Oh my gosh. Need to deafen myself here as well. And now we continue all the way through, hoping to see him pre-stack these lightning rods and get a clean fight here. It is technically possible to have a sub 2 minute Gianor fight, like the sub 1 hour for all three of our boys is possible, but he would need to avoid poetry, which means we would expect to see an early stun. And since he lacks electrocuting arrow, it's going to be very, very unlikely for DeadRabb1t to get away with that. We're expecting more like a 101 best possible time. Hopefully he can progress to this second phase efficiently. He's just barely under the damage threshold to get there, and we see the progression to phase 2 now here. We're going to have about 30 seconds of lore, and then DeadRabb1t should be able to get through this fight pretty cleanly. 305 HP and 17 ES, as well as some armor on both chest and boots and helm. So he should be pretty strong defensively. Doesn't have the Sapphire Charm equipped, despite making a trip back home after getting through Freythorn. Didn't collect that Sapphire Charm, so hopefully he can avoid those ice spike beams in order to get through this. We're hoping to avoid him dying to the Desolation. And now, can we get him to stun Gianor? We're hoping for big stun build up here. Can he get out of this? We see Requiem on high. Is he able to avoid this? We're hoping for him to be able to stun this out of poetry. And no, we do see the poetry phase, so we will not achieve the dream of the sub 60 for everyone. So now we can see DeadRabb1t kiting the mobs all the way around. DeadRabb1t doing a pretty good job demonstrating the technique I talked about earlier, where you do not fight in the middle of the arena and you instead stay closer to the edge of where the fog meets the open air and continuing to walk in that circular area. And you'll notice that he has a much longer lead time when Gianor jumps and is therefore taking less damage because he has a greater chance of avoiding those attacks. So that's a pretty good tutorial for you right there. DeadRabb1t now able to stack up lightning arrow lightning rods as we see the Solstice of Pain come out from Gianor here. Should be able to finish this up. We're hoping for the sub 101. Ooh, avoids the freezing gale. Just barely able to avoid it there. Has a good pile of lightning rods underneath Gianor here as Gianor tries to finish out the rest of this. Gets the stun off, and we will be able to call time pretty soon for DeadRabb1t, I am sure. And DeadRabb1t just barely trying to avoid these blood beams here, extending the fight just a little bit as he needs to play a bit more carefully, dodging out of those beams, and gets a 1 hour flat and 33 by my watch. What a beautiful fight from all three of our players here. A gorgeous amount of execution. GG to all of our boys. Congratulations to everyone else. And I will close my prediction, and then we will have a quick cooldown chat. And our winner for that race was MisoxShiru, fueled by one of the crazier crossbows I've ever seen, as well as some excellent boss combat.